Westeros.
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast. I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle. And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners, and we got Tyrion 6 on deck. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Pretty good. Later one than
Pretty good.
usual. Kyle's got a full belly.
We talking about.
Kyle had to have a fancy dinner, made the podcast go late.
Beef Wellington.
I wish that was the case.
No, we're here. We're ready for Tyrion. Good chapter. I like it again. I'm always the worst person
No,
because I say
there's
the same
never
thing.
been a chapter. Stop saying that you like the chapter because you
All right,
like
Kyle,
every
what'd you think?
chapter. It's a mute point when you say, "Oh, good chapter here. Good chapter here."
You know what? Let's do something we've never done before. What do you think, Jeff? What do you think of this chapter?
Solid chapter. I mean, it's kind of learning. We have these every now and again, right? It's the people learning what we've already learned.
Yep, exactly.
I'm still really confused about the South. So go ahead. Continue, though.
Yeah, I mean, Dorne, I think, is going to be something that probably confuses you for a while, just because they just joined and it's like, oh, hey, welcome. There's a new guy. We got to learn about this.
Multiple guys. Like,
right.
New whole entire doubling of
Yeah,
people.
I mean, and it's a large piece of land. Like I don't know in terms of size if it's second to the north and just like surface area, but it's pretty big.
And it at first, like when we first started and like, King's Landing, you guys like, oh yeah, Dorne's down there, whatever. To me, that was like one place, right? Like it was like a city of Dorne or something like that.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
So like I didn't really understand, and then now it just kind of is, it's kind of cracking open essentially this
Realizing,
yeah, and like we were talking about, Jeff and I right there, where like I am so confused by all these names, these people we barely see them, like they're kind of here, they get talked about way over there, like we don't.
Yeah, the names are the tough.
So I am very lost.
I think George does a good job though of like I think it's interesting now. Like if you just look at like the North in isolation, right? Like at the start of the book, it's probably pretty easy to think like, oh, the North is a united whole. Like in this game of players, we got 7 kingdoms. Maybe at most we have 7 players, right? But now where we're at, we're like, even inside the North, we got the Ramsay the bastard, Ramsay Snow, right? Roos's bastard, killing Hornwoods. Now we got Roose in on the plot to kill the Starks. We got Northmen killing Northmen. So like as the book goes on, you realize that like even inside the groups that you think are united, there's politics going against each other. And it goes even down to the smaller groups of like family level, where here you have like Tyrion, Tywin, Cersei, and they all are on the same side, but they all don't really want the same things and have the same viewpoints.
You have Lancel
right?
and Kevin and Devin and Oberyn and Dorne.
Well, to bring it back to Dorne, I think what I was saying is like George does a good job of like introducing a body. It's like, oh, here's a thing, right? And kind of like you said, like right now, I think you're supposed to be just thinking of like Dorne as a whole. But as the book goes on, we'll realize that like even inside of Dorne, there are different players who don't want the same thing, right? So like, but I think like we won't get like it took 3 books to get there for Starks or for like the North, right? That we have different players in the North. I think it's like a cool slow roll of like how he introduces these like the politics of the books, I guess. And we're just getting the introduction of Dorne.
I think the toughest thing about Dorne is their name, because they're the Martells and their rival is the Tyrells, and it's just the Rells, and you're like, wait, is that guy a Martell or a Tyrell? Is that Dorne or is that Highgarden?
Yeah, you're right. That doesn't help. It doesn't help at all.
So. All right, let's jump in. So Tyrion is enjoying a fancy dinner, just like Kyle, with his wife. And I hope Kyle's peas were a little bit better.
Tyrion doesn't like his dinner. He's with Sansa. Sansa is mopey. She takes after her mom.
Brutal time. Well, yeah. I mean, you plant, like I've said before, you plant corn, you get corn. So.
True. And again, people know that we're not the biggest Sansa or Cat fans, but like there's reasons, right? Like it's understandable why they're mopey. Everything, their lives are shit, right? Like Cat had just gone through all these grief. Sansa's probably life is even worse. She's going through the same amount of grief, but she's a prisoner. Yeah.
Shit is bad for her.
Yeah, so it's understandable.
She is allowed to be that.
She doesn't even have the worst of it yet. The worst news.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That didn't even happen in this chapter. Yeah.
So, all right. So they're eating dinner. Tyrion's kind of distracted anyway. Like he's got a lot of shit going on. The biggest one being the 2 Rells are battling out in King's Landing, even though he's tried to put them as far away as possible. They're still bumping into each other. So now some casualties that have gone on.
Yeah, there was a brawl in a pot shop that left 2 of the Gargalan men scolded, which I guess means like burned.
Scalded with an A. Yeah, like scalding hot water.
Yeah,
burning hot water.
They got what Arya did at Harrenhal, like soup poured on them or something, like boiling soup poured on them.
Yeah,
but then somebody else died on the Tyrell side. So,
would you rather be burned or dead?
Burned. Easy one. I guess there's probably, if we're being honest, there's probably a point to which you could burn me that I would rather be dead. But a scald by a pot of some boiling water or something, I'll take that. Yeah.
Would you rather be two-faced or just to call it quits there?
Yeah, 2 places like that. There, you're getting close.
That's pretty extreme. Yeah. I don't know that I'd want that.
What else happened between them?
Also, besides the brawl, we also heard that Lady Olenna called Oberyn's paramour, I think is what he said, the serpent's whore. And we didn't hear what happened exactly from that, but Tyrion says it thinks to himself that there was an ugly confrontation. So I don't know if that means an actual fight broke out or they're just like ladies yelling at each other.
Sand. We did get her name, by the way.
Yep, we had her name. Yep.
We had her name?
I think we had it last time.
We met her on the ride in.
Okay. Yeah, he was introducing when he went through.
Everybody.
Yeah. So yeah. Sansa's like apologized, like I'm sorry, and he's like, you're not why I'm frustrated.
Why would she be apologizing anyway? She didn't cook the food.
Because courtesy is a woman's armor. It's like all she's got. It's just like try and be nice.
Yeah, but Lady Olenna would be like, man, this fucking meal sucks. Like,
that's true.
Yeah, but that's not who she is, though, right? Like that's.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, if I didn't cook the meal, I wouldn't be One, she didn't pick a restaurant. She didn't cook the meal. She just sat down at the table too. I'd be like, this fucking.
I mean,
sucks.
but like, there's times like, say someone's like relative passes away, you say like, oh, I'm sorry, right? You didn't have anything to do with that, but like, you're still sorry for someone, right?
Why doesn't Tyrion apologize to Sansa for the bad peas? It's just as much his fault.
I don't know, but that's
fault.
what I'm saying. Like, it's not. I'm sure at some point in your life you said I'm sorry for something that you didn't do, right? So she's just saying I'm sorry, you're upset, basically.
Okay.
Like, oh, I wish I could make you happy. She's just trying to be like a pleasant wife,
I mean, to
be
fair, I also think like as a woman, right, that's still her responsibility in terms of this is what she was taught, right? This is not what.
Yeah.
But like, this is like that is her responsibility. It is her responsibility to own up for any discomfort that your man feels.
I can see Kat also sitting at the table and being like, "These peas are bad," but I digress. Like
maybe early in the marriage. Again, I think once they're comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, I digress. So
Pod's there. He's pouring peas and stuff, right?
Yeah, too many peas.
Not doing much.
Too. One other thing just on the Martells is that Oberyn just continues to ask for justice. Yep. This is how we ended that chapter, meeting him, Kyle, if you remember.
Yeah, he's like, bring me the mountain, pretty much, right?
And they circle back to this with the conversation with Tywin at the end.
Yeah, it's definitely a big part of this chapter, yep.
After dinner, Sansa's like, yo, I'm going to go pray. I'm going to go down to the Godswoods.
Yeah, I gotta go talk to her dude.
She's been doubling down though. She's been
Yeah, but I mean, this is definitely still her talking to that guy, right? Like,
yeah, well, probably even more so, right? Because I don't feel like we haven't had a Sansa chapter in a while. But I feel like the last time we did, she had 2 options, right, on her plate to get out of town.
It's the wedding, right?
Well, the Tyrell deal. She was supposed to be like, oh, we're at your Joffrey's wedding. You're gonna go marry Willis. That's not possible.
So half of her,
right?
yeah. The other option is during Joffrey's wedding.
Do we know that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was like the whole plan with that drunk night, right? Like that was.
Well, she's been working with Dantos for something, and he basically for like a whole book, probably almost a whole book at this point, has just been saying like later.
He said we're gonna whisk you out when everybody's paying attention to the wedding.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's given the timeline now, so that we need to, it'll happen then. So
gotcha.
How else would I know this, Nelson?
I don't know. Just a good guess.
All right, maybe, but I mean, he has said that, I guess.
Okay, no, I believe you. Well, that's what I was saying. Like, so even more so, right? I was saying there was a time there where she, I think, told Dantos, like, you know what, don't worry about it. But
yeah, and that's when he's like, no, you must do it at the wedding or whatever. But yeah, now she's got one option.
Yeah, Lannisters found out about the Tyrell marriage thing, so they pulled that out from under him by marrying her to Sansa to Tyrion. So now exactly. She's got to be doubling down on this. So yeah, she goes there every night, which makes sense because I was wondering, like, damn, that would kind of like draw attention. But I think what Danto said was like, come here as often as you can, because I'm not always going to be able to make it sometimes. You won't always be able to make it sometimes. So we'll both just come every night pretty much, and we'll be here sometimes. So
yeah, I mean, if she makes it a routine, it no longer becomes suspicious.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking too. It becomes less suspicious if you're going every single day. Yeah.
Tyrion asked to go with or recommend, and I don't know what the word, insisted, recommended, or volunteered to go with her. She's like, "Whoa, no, wait, hold up. This is me time. You stay. You do you, brother."
You know what they call that? Irony. Right. We all know that if Tyrion did go, something would be up. Tyrion doesn't know, but like, it only lasts for like 2 sentences. But even me on a 5th read through, I'm like, oh, what if he goes? That'd be bad. Like, Kyle, like for a second, you had to be like, ooh.
I mean, it honestly wouldn't be that bad. It's not like Dantos comes running into the Godswood screaming before he takes like a surveillance of the land. Oh, Sansa, like we're leaving tomorrow, and it's like, oh shit, Tyrion's here.
I mean, that was definitely the point. That was definitely the point of that conversation.
You're right.
It's kind of suspicious. Like in the writing, it kind of seems like it's a quick, like, no, you can't come. Like,
yeah,
it's my cheating spot.
That's definitely what it was.
Yeah. Tyrion doesn't. I guess Tyrion doesn't really care.
Well, I was gonna say this is kind of one of those things that shows that Tyrion doesn't catch everything, right? Like, I think that's kind of the point of that.
True, but also think about it. Like, she doesn't like him. Like, she hates the situation.
But that's not what she. That's not.
It's not the courteous thing to do to say no right away.
Well, that's not where they're at.
I guess you're saying jumping at a no. You wouldn't necessarily jump at a no if you like hate someone. You might be like, no, don't worry about it. Maybe next time. But like jumping at a no shows that there's like a jerk reaction to it, and Tyrion misses it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like like he doesn't even think like, ew, that was weird. Like, why so quick?
Yeah, I get what you guys are saying. I just think Sansa obviously would not want Tyrion to go.
Doesn't matter because Tyrion doesn't want to go anyway. He'd rather dive into the journals.
Right, that might be boring.
And the books. He wants to get into Littlefinger's book. So he's made him a mess trying to find dragons. What do they say? Breed dragons or just
lock them up in the treasury.
He's making up fake money in their accounts.
Put his dragons to work instead of lock them up, or something.
Well, I don't think that's what he's saying. I don't know that he's making up fake money. Essentially, he's trying to
He's trying to understand what Littlefinger did, but also try to figure out like where they're going to come up with money that they don't have.
Littlefinger doesn't like being liquid, right? He likes all the money that they possibly had in investments. I think is what Tyrion's saying there. Like, put the dragons to work, don't put it in the treasury.
Yeah, but it's very hard to track because it's like 100 here, 100 there, 100 coming in, 100 going out, 50 going in. You know, every antler man has a loan from the king.
It's going to be tough to get that money back.
That's funny. So let's think back. Who are the antler men?
I forget who they were. I remember they had were they Renly's guys?
Kind of.
They were people that like said that they were going to go with Renly, right? They were prisoners.
It was a group of rich merchant people in the city who had this like plan that like when the fight starts with Stannis, basically it's all motivated by money. They thought they would be doing their investments would be better off if Stannis was on the throne or whatever. So they wanted Stannis to win, so they hired like a bunch of mercenaries and had this plan that like when the fighting started, they were going to attack one of the gates and let Stannis' army in. But Varys, I think, probably spies heard about
supported
this,
that plan,
and they captured them. And Joffrey launched all of them.
I remember him flinging them over
at a catapult and onto the ships. Right, Davos, I think, sees one land in the Davos chapter. Yeah, so that's them. And it makes sense. I was like, the reason I know that so well is because I went back and looked at it because I was like, why would these guys owe like that much money?
Why would they all have loans?
That is considerable. But yeah, I guess it was a group of like pretty well off merchants who were like doing it for investment reasons. They wanted Stannis. Yeah.
All right. So he's going through there, and then he gets summoned by Daddy.
Yep. Boros Blunt comes up to bring him to Dad. Yep. Oh, he does say he's going to send Bronn after the heirs from the Antler Men, but he doesn't think it'll work very well. Yep. So he goes to talk to him. He feels like it's a wind's coming on, or it's going to start raining. So he says like maybe I'm going to go get Sansa afterwards, so that like she doesn't get soaked. And then
which might be an accidental time to catch her in the Godswood, right? If he just shows up,
one, yeah,
that would be the issue. A surprise show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more like by the end of the chapter, it's like, oh, that's a conversation Tyrion. That's the last person Tyrion's going to see is talk to Sansa at the end of this with the news that he's going to have to bring her.
Mm-hmm.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it still could happen.
Linger a little bit.
Yep. So he gets in there. It's not just Tywin.
No, it's full council. I considered. I don't know if it's actually full. I know they made some fake ass.
Varys isn't there, and
titles.
Littlefinger's out of office, so it's pretty close. Pretty close to full
Anyone
council.
that's available.
Pycelle. Did Pycelle get reinstated? I know he's kind of reinstated, but was he back on the council?
He's the Lannisters' maester.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
true?
I thought he was like on the council, but not officially Grand Maester, and like theoretically, a new Grand Maester should be on the way.
Okay.
I believe that's the case.
But that was also like Tyrion's decree. So like now that Tywin's back, Tywin might have been like whatever.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, but
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Regardless. Yeah, so we've seen this situation before, right? Where I feel like Joffrey was like acting all pumped about something, or maybe Cersei was acting all pumped about something.
I don't know if we've seen Joffrey Tywin interaction.
Not like this.
Not like this before.
This is definitely the first interaction.
It's
like
awesome.
this for them.
It's so great. But
it's pretty good.
Good. It's a pretty good show scene too. It's pretty
similar.
Pretty similar. And the two actors are just good.
So it comes in, Tywin, Cersei, Kevin,
Caven,
Pycelle, and Joff. And Joff's excited. And Tyrion's like, what's going on? And they give him a letter.
Rosalind caught a fine fat trout. Her brothers gave her a pair of wolf pelts for her wedding. Signed, Walder Frey.
And Tyrion's like, is he trying to be poetic? I'm guessing the trout is Edmure. And he's like, wolf pelts. And Joff just like cuts him off. He's like, he's dead. Joff's fired up.
He's dead.
Yeah, I don't have to deal with him. Yeah. The bane of my existence. I don't even have to do anything, right?
And Tyrion's like, you would think he did it himself. Joff seems so fired up about it. And Tyrion's thinking, oh shit, this is Balon. Now Robb. And he's like, the war's winning itself.
Yeah.
The war is winning itself right now. That's great.
And what does Cersei say? The war's not winning itself.
Daddy did it.
It's Tywin winning the war.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Right before that, though, Tyrion also had a thought of Sansa praying to the gods about her brother and like
praying for safety, probably.
I guess that doesn't really matter. Like, good thing I'm not very pious because it doesn't seem like they're picking sides. Yeah. But yeah, Cersei gives all the credit to Daddy-O.
Yep. And Tywin's basically like, we haven't even won yet. Like, there's still enemies in the field. This is just like a big good move.
It's definitely important, but
you could have a drink after this win, I guess, if that's the way you celebrate.
Put your feet up for a sec.
But Tyrion made a point to say that Tywin does not celebrate like that, Jeff.
Yep.
So Cersei's like, they can't stop us. We got Dorne, we got Highgarden, and us now. Like, they have to, like, the River Lords just have to join us. And Tywin's like, most will. Walder holds Edmure, so he's captive, right? So this is some of the stuff we weren't sure about. All this stuff. Walder holds Edmure, he's captive.
I did neglect that at the beginning of this. We went to ask Jeff how he felt, but my response to that was gonna be that at least Nelson's spoiler didn't last very long. We get confirmation that Cat is dead pretty quickly hereafter. It was 4 pages and then this one here, so maybe like 7 pages later. So
yeah, true. Not the biggest spoiler anymore.
Yeah, Jeff kept saying that. I knew we found out right away, but I didn't want to.
No, you fucking did.
I did. I'm a few chapters ahead.
You're so full of shit. Your eyes are brown.
So basically, Tywin's given the situation where most of them will come over to our side, but Riverrun remains Brendan Tully, Blackfish, but he can't really do anything because we have Edmure captive.
Edmure's locked up.
As far as the River Lords go, the main ones that are going to be problems will be Jason Mallister and Titus Blackwood, but the Freys can deal with the Mallisters, and they can probably just pay the Brackens to take care of the Blackwoods. So without getting into too much detail, the Brackens and Blackwoods are families that kind of live near each other and just kind of like feud a lot. So like they just kind of don't like each other already.
I think Kyle might know them from
Duncan Egg.
Duncan Egg. Okay.
I think two of them joust against each other, and Dunk talks about like how there's a feud between the families. But again, it's not a huge.
Definitely remember the names, but I didn't remember that. I thought it was from a Theon chapter or something, but I could be very wrong.
Like they're basically the
Hatfield.
What's
and
the old like Western Hatfield McCoys? Yeah,
it's actually like Virginia. That's not Western, just for the
Southern.
Did I say West Virginia? I guess
you said Western.
I was saying like Cowboys and
no,
it's more Southern.
Southern,
it's more like East Southern,
Appalachia,
not West Southern. Yeah. like just straight rednecks. Sorry if you live in Virginia or down that neck of the woods.
Down there drinking moonshine.
West Virginia.
Down by the moonshine by the creek.
Tywin is also, his plan is to be pretty generous with his terms. Like, as long as you're willing to bend the knee, you can keep your castle. Like, we're not gonna ruin your family. We're not Reigns of Castamere in your ass right now. Like, all you gotta do is bend the knee.
Actually, kind of surprising from Tywin. Like, I forgot that he said this here. Like, it doesn't seem like a Tywin thing, but what he says to Joffrey later makes sense. Right?
Yeah. I feel like we've heard, maybe not him say this before, but I feel like this has definitely been said before. Like, there has to be a time where you, like, arms get laid down and that's it, right? Like, you can't just fight forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just melt everybody to the ground or flood everybody out. So
he's saying except one. There's one castle that they're out no matter what.
I'm killing them. Yeah,
fuck those guys.
Harrenhal.
And they are the brave companions in Harrenhal.
And Tyrion guesses it, right? Tyrion knows right away what it is. Yeah.
It's also, I would say, the one castle that's being occupied by the person that they didn't give it to, right?
They didn't give it to, but it's interesting because in a second, Tywin says, like, we're talking about the Bloody Mummers, Vargo,
we love Bolton,
his crew.
Yeah.
But Tywin brought them over. They're a sellsword company from Essos. Tywin brought them over, and they were on the Lannister side up until the...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The Weasel Soup, right? Because when Arya goes down with Weasel Soup and they kill the guards, the captain...
They were the enemy.
Oh, are you with the Bloody Mummers or whatever, right? Pretty much saying, like, we had this planned already. Like, there was an escape plan. Like, somebody was going to free the Northmen in Harrenhal already, and Arya is assumed to be them. And then we find out, like, oh no. But now Roose and Vargo, the people who just got let out, are on the same side. So, yeah. So they got brought over. We're fighting for the Lannisters for, like, the first half of the war. Switch sides, and that's why Tywin's like, no. But it's funny because he's like, they got to be out of this, like, out of Westeros. Like, you're the one that brought them here in the first
it's
place.
Your fault.
Well, and then he's like, yeah, but Clegane's all right. Right, like, because he's really good.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, he's like, he's a fucking piece of human garbage too, but he's all right. He's
a tool almost. You know, he's more.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's kind of, I guess, what I'm saying. Is like, these guys are just as shitty.
Even though he's awful, he's a little bit more tamed or under the leash.
Well, exactly. He hasn't betrayed me, Tywin. Yeah.
I think it's funny because here Tyrion thinks that Tywin means to mine the mountain for every nugget before giving him to Dornish justice. We find out a little bit later, Tywin does not mean to give him to Dornish justice, but Tyrion doesn't know that yet. But I like that little mine the mountain of every nugget.
Yeah, one last job kind of is what he's saying here. Like, one last job, go clear out them brave companions. He'll come back here, and then we're giving him to Dornish.
It's kind of interesting that Tyrion thought that Tywin would just hand over the mountain like that. Like, the mountain is obviously, like, really important to... He's like his personal mercenary. Like, oh, I need a job. It's like, you know, Luca Brasi for The Godfather. Like, all right, need a hit. Like, send the mountain.
What's interesting, and I didn't think about it till just now, and you said that in book 1, when Tyrion goes back to the Green Fork and meets up with Tywin for the first time, Tywin commands 3 people to just go out and fuck up the Riverlands. Remember who these are?
It was the Mountain, Armory Lorch,
and Vargo.
And Vargo.
So Tywin had 3, like, mad dogs.
3 dogs.
Groups, right?
That's why we bring dogs.
Armory got fed to a bear by Vargo.
Yeah, by Vargo.
And Clegane is about to go get Vargo out of Harrenhal.
Feed Vargo to the bear.
So it's kind of funny that I've never thought about it before, but his 3 mad dogs.
Well, the bear's dead, right? Hang on. Before I sound like an idiot on tape here, the bear's dead, right? That died in the Brienne chapter.
They shot the bear up.
They shot it a lot. I don't know if it died the whole way though. I think it probably did.
I don't think anybody gave that bear surgery for the arrow wounds or anything, Jeff. Or not Jeff Nelson.
He did.
Yeah, you're right.
That bear gone.
But now there's when you guys tell me I'm reading too far into it. Because here, let's take an extra step. 3 mad dogs. All Tywin's mad dogs are all killing each other. What's the Clegane sigil?
3 dogs on a
3
yellow...
dogs.
3 black dogs on a yellow field.
Yep, exactly. On purpose? Who knows? Great connection by me.
I mean, you're the one that made them the dogs, though, right?
I think at one point somebody calls them mad dogs. Maybe that's just Gregor, though. I don't know if the other one.
I think he calls Clegane a dog. All right, so Joffrey's like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, we're not giving these traitors their houses. Like, fuck those people. We're killing
What
them
is
all."
this bullshit word generous
Yeah.
you're throwing out there, old man?
I want everyone dead.
By the way, bring Rob's head to me. I'm serving that shit to Sansa on my wedding day. Like, she's gonna look at that head.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see her face. That's pretty much it.
Kevin's just like, what the fuck is this kid? Like,
He's joking. It's a joke, you know?
that's what Cersei says, and Joff's like, no, I'm serious. I want that shit. For real.
No, fuck no, Mom. Yeah, like,
Send
no.
the message now.
It'd be terrifying as a parent. Like, your child is like the Omen child.
Yeah. And Tyrion isn't taking it. And again, I feel like the last time we've seen Tyrion and Sansa interact, we were talking about it last time, was like they had a big confrontation in Tyrion's wedding about like
Tyrion and
betting,
Joffrey, not Tyrion
like,
and Sansa.
Yeah, Tyrion and Joffrey. Joffrey wanted to start the betting, and Tyrion's like, I'll fucking cut you. And Tywin's like, all right, let's just cool down. So
call it off.
They're in the first interaction they have here is again Joffrey being a huge prick about Tyrion's wife.
Tyrion threatens him again.
Yeah, and Tyrion threatens him. Yep.
Yeah, Tyrion calls him a monster, and
Joffrey calls him. Oh no, yeah, you're right.
it's
Right.
both of them, right? Joffrey returns it, and he's like, "Oh well, you better be careful then, because monsters are dangerous, and right now kings are dying like flies."
Yep. And he's like, "I can have your tongue out for that." That's what Joff says. First off, like, as the king, couldn't he technically have Tyrion's tongue out for nothing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you could be the Queen of Hearts and just bring me his head for.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, here's an excuse. I'll rip your tongue out.
But Tywin's gonna give a little history lesson.
Cersei basically says like, "Shut up, like calm down, Joffrey. Like I want Tywin to see how horrible Tyrion is." And Tywin just
she's like, he's right here, like Dad's here. Let him see this. He'll take our side.
It's not a bad little strat by Cersei. Like,
I know, but I think Tywin also sees what a piece of shit Joffrey's being.
For sure,
right?
For sure.
I think Tywin's also used to Cersei's games.
Well, true, yeah.
Tywin knows it all. Like, Tywin even knows Tyrion is this way. Like, Tyrion, he says
for sure.
later on, he's loose tongue, and like he knows he's spouting off. But yeah, Tywin gives his story. Now, let's go ahead. I know you wanna read it.
I was just gonna say he tells Joffrey that Aerys, as he probably says the Mad King, also felt the need to remind people he was king, and he enjoyed ripping out tongues too. Asked Sir Ilyn. Which I think we've heard this before, so I don't think anything new here. Just reminders.
He called him Aerys too.
Aerys. In my notes, I just like have him as his official name, Aerys II. So
he did not call him the Mad King. Is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. And then Cersei's like, yeah, but Ilyn never provoked Aerys like Tyrion does. I don't know. Do you remember why? I know why Ilyn got his tongue ripped out.
I don't recall now.
I don't think we got the whole story. We got part of it. You could probably mention part of it, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah," but I don't want to. I guess risk it. So no, I don't. It's really not a huge spoiler.
Basically, Ilyn was hyping up Tywin and basically being like, "Oh, the Hand actually has more power than the King," and somehow, because Ilyn was always the captain of his guard. He was like the Jory Cassell was to Ned, was Ilyn to Tywin, and he heard that like basically if Jory was like talking shit, like Ned's actually the one running the shit, not Robert, and then Robert got word and ripped Jory's tongue out. That would be the equivalent, but. Cersei goes on to complain about Tyrion calling him a monster. Tywin's basically just shut up. Be quiet. This is what Tywin says. Be quiet, Cersei. Joffrey, when your enemies defy you, you must serve them steel and fire. When they go to their knees, however, you must help them back to their feet. Elsewise, no man will ever bend the knee to you. Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king at all. Aerys never understood that, but you will. When I've won your war for you, we will restore the king's peace and the king's justice. The only head that need concern you is Marjorie Tyrell's maidenhead.
I think my favorite part about this is how you're always like, I'm an alpha. I'm the alpha dog. I'm alpha. And that's like the exact opposite of what this quote here is saying. And that you love so much, it sounds like. He's like, if you're king, you don't need to be telling everybody you're fucking king.
I only say alpha to you when we're on a video call and all of our heads are the same size. When we're in person and I'm looking down on you, and it's clear, I don't say it. You know what I mean?
Clear.
Nelson, I've seen a guy a foot shorter than you bring you to your knees really quick.
Yeah, me too.
But Joff isn't laying down. Like, he kind of thinks for a second, and he's like, fuck you, grandfather. Like,
yeah, he's like, wait a second. Why am I listening to this old man?
I'm king.
You haven't done shit. A king needs to be, what's he say? A king needs to be bold.
Yep.
Like my father, who won all these battles, and you sat on your rock.
Yeah, you're afraid.
Pussy.
Under your rock.
Pussy.
My dad did all the work. He killed Rhaegar. You were just hiding.
His dad being Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, exactly. He never says it, but like it's funny because we know it's not actually his dad, but Joffrey still claims it. We learn more about Robert's parenting later, which isn't great, but like it's just a fucked up
I think we
family.
knew that actually.
We did know it. It's just a fucked up family in general. But yeah, Tywin's response basically is just, thank you for that wisdom, your grace.
Okay, he's pretty much like, all right, I'll shut the fuck up, but you shut the fuck up as well, right? Like,
no, he's just like, he says, thank you for that wisdom, your grace. Lord Tywin said with a courtesy so cold it was like to freeze their ears off. Sir Kevin, I can see the king is tired. Please see him safely back to his bedchamber. Pycelle, perhaps some gentle potion to help his grace sleep restfully. So he's just like, get this fucker to bed. Get him out of my sight.
yeah, it's past his bedtime. He's acting up. Get him out of here.
Exactly. And so Pycelle is basically like, dream wine. I think we've heard this before. I do actually have some notes on like poisons we've heard before, like poisons and potions.
We've definitely heard of the dream wine.
I didn't have this one mentioned.
Ned was taking.
I missed it. I must have missed it. I think they might have given
too much dream wine could kill you, right? But just
I don't know. Like again, I have it in my notes, but I don't have. This is the first mention I actually have of it. So, but I know we've heard of it before.
Yeah, I feel like Ned was on it when he broke his hip or his leg or whatever.
maybe milk of the poppy.
Yeah, that's milk of the poppy.
Milk of the poppy.
That's the Oxy one. I actually don't know if Oxy is what I think it is. Is that like the pain Percocet? Pain reliever?
Is a pain reliever.
It just knocks you out and just makes you basically sleep through your illness is what I think of milk of the poppy.
Yeah.
It's like an opioid, right?
Well, what is dream wine?
I don't know if it's an opioid or not, but
If it's not wine that makes you
I
sleep,
think dream wine's more like NyQuil.
what does that do?
I don't know. Night makes you sleep.
Makes you sleep through your night through your illness, which is literally what you just said.
But it's not like Oxycontin. Like there's a difference between NyQuil and Oxycontin,
they're
right?
both.
I hope so. I drink NyQuil all the time. I hope I'm not a drug
I don't
addict.
think you're supposed to be doing that all the time.
Not all the time, but like when I'm sick, it's my go-to.
Whatever. Let's not. We don't need to spend too much time on making milk of the poppy and dream wine fucking real live medications for people to start taking. All right, Joffrey goes off. Cersei is like, all right, Dad, sorry. He's bold like his daddy.
Yeah, they're gone. So Tywin keeps Cersei and Tyrion back, or just Tyrion? Does he talk? He talks to the three of them for a little bit, right?
It's Cersei and Tyrion, and then he boots Cersei.
Yeah.
But there's just a quick like, how the fuck would he know that I sat at Castle Rock? Like, who told him that story? So
Yeah, well, who said a king acts boldly? This does. I mean, I could see both ways. It seems like a thing Cersei would say. It also seems like a thing
she would
Robert
definitely
would
feed
say.
him that shit too, though, right?
Robert
Like,
would also say it though, so I could believe what she says.
Yeah.
It's like probably something she heard from Robert, but she might also be covering her ass.
I don't think Robert would be out here killing people like this, though. I don't think he would be calling for somebody's head to come so that.
It's interesting because I feel like we haven't really seen this too much before, but here in this chapter, it seems like Joffrey's like proud and kind of wants to be like Robert.
well, I have a thought on that. It's the only thing that gets him out from underneath Tywin. You know, if he just was all in on the Lannister line, it's all because of Tywin, right? Tywin.
You're saying he just uses that as an excuse of opportunity in that moment because it's the one like thing cut he has there.
He's like, well, all right, fuck. Like, well, he's just like, how can I get almost a dig at Tywin? Is be like, well, my dad, you know, who's not a Lannister, you know, we know
Gotcha.
isn't true, but like, I don't really care for this guy, but this guy is gonna like put me ahead of my grandfather right now. Like, it's almost like he had this in his back pocket where if grandfather pissed him off, he'd be like, well, my dad was the fucking truth anyway.
That's a good call.
Well, and I think might be kind of the Cersei part of it too, though, right? Like, you need to assert your power to him. Like, he doesn't control you. Like, he may be my dad and the grandfather, but you're still king. Like, I could see her feeding him stuff like that,
For
right?
sure. Yeah, for sure. I could see that too.
Like, you can't tell him I said this, but XYZ kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like that whole just like they're like Tyrion and Cersei both seem like borderline scared of Tywin, but also like they disagree and like want to push back on him a lot.
Well, and Joffrey is the actual king, right? Like, I mean, so
that's her in to be able to.
yeah, for sure. Like, she can have him be mouthy to him.
But the problem that she's having is she thinks that she can have him be mouthy to Tywin, and she can be in charge of what he's saying. but she's having trouble there. Like when she says shut up, he won't shut up. When he says cut off Ned Stark's head, she says no. He does it anyway, right? So like that's the problem. Cersei's
she's unleashed the monster, but she can't control said monster.
Exactly.
Right? Like that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yep. So Cersei blamed Robb, like, oh yeah, he's willful, just like his dad. Like he probably heard, his dad throw some shade at you for hiding on Castle Rock. He's like, wait, I thought he didn't even like his dad.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, blah blah blah.
He didn't. Once Robert hit the boy so hard he knocked out 2 baby teeth over some mischief with a cat. So it's a good thing we probably don't get any more information about that. But Joffrey did something that...
anyway, right? Like Joffrey could have fucked up a cat or something and deserved to get punched in the face.
I mean, baby teeth.
That's Tywin's stance. Is like, maybe he needed to get hit a little bit more.
Baby teeth, but I mean, if your baby, like, 5-year-old is filleting cats or something alive, like,
Robert is like my size. You can never like sucker punch a 5-year-old kid.
For sure.
You're right though. Like you have to take that kid to counseling.
I don't think anywhere
something.
That's allowed.
I think if you're given passes for other things of like it's the way of life in Westeros, like I think this is one of those times when maybe you could give it it's the way of life in Westeros.
Watching the betting ceremony is supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. That's normal shit.
Too like psychological whatever on it. Like most of the time, I think in real life, when people harm animals, often come from abusive households. So it's like, is he getting hit because he hurt a cat, or did maybe he's been getting hit already?
Sounds like the chicken came before the egg.
Again, it's one of the things we don't know. We don't have evidence. Clearly, Robert abused Joffrey.
Who cares? Robert's dead.
Was it always in like response to something? Is the question. Who knows? We don't know at all. Maybe Robert's.
The only thing I'd say about that is that even Cersei right here kind of says like that was the only time I ever knew that he hit him. Right.
That's true. I guess that's true. Good point.
Because she's like, I told him if he'd do it again, I'd beat him up, kill him.
Not beat him up.
Yeah, I know.
Kill him.
Yeah, I know.
Kill him.
This is interesting. We've heard this. Someone's said this already.
Give us the answer, Papa Nelson.
When Jon and Ygritte are talking about like how does the whole like you just steal a woman and then that turns into a healthy relationship work? Like he's like, what if someone that like abused you stole you? She's like, I just cut his throat when you sleep. You know nothing, Jon Snow. And it's exactly what Cersei said she was going to do to Robert. And it seems like it worked, right? Like, it makes me think, like, you never want to get on your wife's bad side. Like, that's always the... And in those days and days when there's not, like, you just immediately go to jail, like, Cersei would go to jail in that situation. But in the wildling culture, you definitely just, do that and walk for... we talked about it last chapter. Free folk. See ya. And do whatever I want. No rules.
All right. Let's kick Cersei's ass out of this meeting. Let's get to the meat and bones of Tywin and Tyrion.
It's like, he tells her to go. She went. I like that too. Seething.
Just 2 fingers. The 2-finger wave got Cersei out of there. Get the fuck out. Tired of your bullshit.
And then, when they're gone, Tyrion says, not Robert II, Aerys III. Because at one point in there, he had said, oh, he's going to be Robert II the way you're raising him or whatever. Like Tywin said that to Cersei or something.
Yeah. Were you confused at all by that, Kyle? Because it caught me off guard a little bit. I was like, who the fuck's Robert II? But just saying, like, Robert Jr., I guess, like...
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I did understand this one, right? Because Aerys II was the Mad King.
Well,
And so, exactly. He thought he was going to be, like, the drunk, boasting guy, right?
Robert.
And not a shitty person, right? That was what he's hoping out of Joffrey.
Well, in the conversation with Cersei... Tywin had said to Cersei, like, the way you're raising him, he's going to grow to be Robert II. And then when Cersei left, Tyrion's like, not Robert II, Aerys III. Like, he's not like Robert. Like, he's not just drunk and doing whatever he wants and, like, rash. He's just straight monster. Up cruel and, like, likes hurting people.
That was kind of my point. Thank you for restating it in a better way, clearer way.
Yeah, so we get on to the talk of... the wedding plot. He congratulates his dad for plotting with Walter, and he's subtly pissed, not subtly pissed that his dad did not key him in on the plan.
Yeah, the plot of the century.
Which I don't know if I would have.
Well, I'm glad they had this conversation, though, Jeff, because this is kind of the conversation we had the other day, right? Where he's like, this was need to know.
Yeah. Oh, right. About, like, how did the phrase do the deal? It could be different on how the phrase...
Yeah, well, that was our conversation.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it's also funny, as part of this, Tyrion goes back and he references a different Tyrion chapter. I don't know which one. I actually didn't go look it up. But there was a part where he had walked into a meeting with Tywin, and Tywin was like writing the whole time. And I think he didn't stop writing while they were talking. And Tyrion's like, "Can you just put that shit down and talk to me," or something like that? And he's like, "Some wars are won with swords and some with ravens," or something like that.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Quills and ravens. And Tyrion's like, "Now I know what you mean by that." Which, like, I'm sure Jeff and I talked about it in that chapter. Like, a lot of people on rereads are like, Tywin was involved. How far back? Same with Roose. A lot of people do the same thing with Roose. Like, on a reread, it's like, how early seeing Roose? Like, can we be sure he knew he was on a betrayal path, right? And for Tywin, just like on how early did Tywin get involved with the phrase?
That is a good question about Roose.
Yeah, and I think for Tywin, I think this is like the most definite, like that whatever that Tyrion chapter was, which actually wasn't that long ago, but that's like the most definite. Tywin's known for like a decent amount of time. For
sure, and that was definitely what he was doing in that chapter. Was starting this, or at least advancing this.
Yeah. And I think in that chapter, he's also talking to Tyrion about Duskendale. About like, I'm going to send the mountain to Duskendale with a bunch of people. I have a feeling
I think you're right about that.
Now. Again, just don't want to throw anything more at it.
I do vaguely remember being confused why he had that information.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. Yeah. Again, it shows just those three players have been talking.
Here's a question.
Yep.
Well, wait, does Roose know? No, Vargo knows about Jaime. Roose doesn't know about Jaime.
Roose knows.
No, Roose does know. He sent him back and was like,
yeah, he had dinner with him and everything.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, you're right. Because he was like, yeah, you got to go to your dad.
Tell your dad. Yeah, tell your dad I didn't
put
do
in
this.
a good word for me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was the whole Lannister send the regard. Well, part of it, I guess. Now we see that there was other Lannisters involved. So, but it doesn't sound like Tywin knows about Jaime.
Knows about Jaime's hand. When you say about Jaime, you mean about that his hands cut
about
off.
Jaime having escaped prison, right? Like, and like, do they know about that? I don't.
I think they know about the escape from prison. I think that's got to be.
I think that rumor had to have made it to King's Landing. No.
Do they know that Roose sent him on his way?
I doubt they know that, Kyle.
But like, why wouldn't Roose, the guy that's in league with them, have told them, "Hey, man, I found your kid."
Oh, sent a raven ahead of time. You're right. Maybe he did. That's a good point. Maybe he did, and it just wasn't mentioned here.
But it doesn't seem like he did. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like
at that point,
he might have been a little afraid to put too much in writing to like.
That's another good point.
I mean, they set up a plot to kill Robb.
There had to be some of that gone and set up in writing, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, like that wouldn't have been the worst thing they said in writing.
To your point, but even in this note, it's not very coded. This letter that they get here, but even the response letter, like once technically everything's done and dusted, like what's the worst that could happen? Even it's coded.
Tyrion or Tywin legitimately says, like, this fucking moron is being so poetic. Like, just tell me what you need to tell me.
Tyrion says that when he's reading the letter. But again, if Tywin might have, like, whoever broached the approach, whether Walder or Tywin ravened each other first, emailed each other first, they may have been like, yo, from here on out, let's refer to like lions and towers instead of Freys and Lannister. You know what I mean?
Which really doesn't hide anything.
Doesn't hide much. But
yeah, I mean, these people are known by these symbols for sure. It's not like this some obscure thing where, like, you know, your friends call you Snake and nobody else knows you as Snake, and then, you know.
Yeah. But.
Yeah. All right, so Tyrion's really just salty that he didn't know, and he's like, well, did Cersei know? Did you tell her? Like, he's
that's true.
That's like
it's kind of
playing
the
child.
Did you tell that bitch and not me?
And this is where Ty went against, like...
Manhattan Project.
I didn't tell anybody that didn't have a part, and did they only know their part? Is that the Manhattan Project part of it?
Yeah, Manhattan Project is only...
Well, I know the Manhattan... We saw that movie together, but...
That's like the whole, like, the big thing
about
it is,
I think, that...
like... Well, they don't show this part in the movie, but, like, I think, like, 100,000 people worked on the Manhattan Project that didn't know what they were working... That they were working on a bomb. Right.
You're going to open the drawbridge, but you're not going to know why you opened the drawbridge, but you're going to be on drawbridge.
Well, that's to your guys' point is like, that's the Frey side of things, which is way more complicated. I
just
think
blindly shoot crossbow arrows in the room. Don't, you're not aiming for anybody. You don't need to know who to aim at, but you just, you look over this wall and shoot a crossbow down. Okay.
I think that you guys are right that the Frey side of things, and we talked about it last chapter. How do you pull it off? But basically what Tywin is saying is he's kind of being coy here, is he's like, hey, I only told people who needed to know. Guess what? he's the only person from the Lannister side who needs to know, right? So he's basically saying, like, I did this on my own. I didn't tell anybody, right? Like, he's playing it off as like, oh, it's this secret mission we did, but he had no control of who knew of what on the Frey side. That's all up to Walter once the messages are gone, right?
Well, it's all about knowing your personnel too, and he knows that Tyrion talks too much, or that, and in this place you can't keep a secret. So if you tell anybody, secret's out. So
yep, exactly.
Keep it in tight. But
kind of speaking of, where is Varys? We haven't seen him.
That's the thing about Varys is he is just gone for like a couple chapters sometimes. And it's happened before.
Mm-hmm. I know. I just
I don't know.
Put it out there anyway.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about how we're gonna please Oberyn, because fuck this guy.
So Oberyn, remind me,
brother of the King of Dorne.
He is he the Viper?
Red Viper, correct.
The Red Viper. Okay.
He's the guy who wants to kill the Mountain. He's known to be, hot-tempered, I guess, or
he says he kind of even says it here. He's like mad. Someone says he's mad.
For sure. Yeah. His dude is nuts. Half mad. It's always been half mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was like part of the introduction to him was right. Like, oh fuck, it's the Red Viper. It is not the guy we thought was coming.
Yeah.
This is way more.
Dorne would have been easy to handle.
Way more of a tinderbox now, right? Like, yeah, this is a big deal that this dude showed up because he's a hothead. Now, pause for a second. Is this the guy that was wearing? We found out somebody was wearing Renly's armor. I know that was kind of another like prior spoiler-ish. Was it him?
No, it was not him, but I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, well, we can leave it at that if we don't know who it is. Yeah, I remember. I think we do know, but I don't want to push it. So yeah.
we don't know. I know it hasn't been revealed yet.
I know it's been revealed by me.
I know it hasn't been revealed by you. That's what I was going to say. Like, because the last two chapters, Jeff's been saying biggest spoiler ever, and I knew that we actually learned the truth in 2 chapters. And I was going to say in the spoiler section, yet Jeff spoiled that, and here we are. Almost.
But Kyle doesn't remember it. We'll see. Let's see what Kyle remembers more: if Cat stays dead or who Renly was. All right. So there's a quick little thing about Tyrion asking if he really tried to raise Dorne against Robert back in the day for Viserys.
Yes, I think before we get there, it's a great line by Tyrion though when Tywin, I guess he abruptly changed the subject to Oberyn. And he's like, how are we going to appease him? He's like, I've been thinking about how to appease Oberyn. And Tyrion's like, is this something I can know or should I leave so you can discuss it with yourself? Because it's right after the need to know thing.
Yeah, that's a perfect. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah,
or good sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
So just a little history on Dorne, like they were about to stay on Targaryen side back in the day.
Yeah, it seems like try and like rally. Like after the war, like kind of done and dusted, Robert's already on the throne. Dorne was thinking about siding with Viserys back in the day.
For Viserys, was a boy at the time, right? Like,
yeah,
he was young. 8 when Dany was born, I think. And Dany was born.
So yeah, he was 8 at the pretty much.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Tyrion's basically like, oh well, do you want me to take Oberyn to the brothels? Like that can. Yeah, we can waste some time there. There's a tool for every job, right?
Yeah, which is something I think Tyrion said to Oberyn last time. Like he was talking about brothels, like, and Tyrion's like, "Wait, you just told me you have a paramour," and he's like, "The more the merrier." Pretty much is like what something like not that happy, but that was what Oberyn was saying. He's like, we love everybody. They seem to have like an open relationship.
Yeah, haven't we heard this line before too? A tool for every task, wasn't that? In like a Tywin line?
Exactly. I think it was a Tywin from a previous chapter about Gregor. Or maybe about somebody
I was
else.
Gonna say I fit our discussion earlier that I think somebody said it in that too.
Yeah.
When we were talking about him.
Yeah. So Tywin's just like, yeah, I could also dress you like a fool and put some jingle bells on you if you want to dance around.
When does he say that? I'm sure Tyrion made a joke before it, right? What did he say?
Well, he's here now with half the nobility of Dorne in his tail, and he grows more impatient every day. Perhaps I should show him the brothels of King's Landing. That might distract him. A tool for every task. Isn't that how it works? My tool is yours, father. Never let it be said that House Lannister blew its trumpets and I did not respond. Very droll. Shall I have them sew you a suit of motley and little hat with bells on it?
Gotcha. So you see what he's saying?
He's basically saying, like, I'll use my penis, right? I go to the brothels anyway.
Yeah, I'll go to the brothels.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think he was going to please him with his penis. He was just like, let me do my thing that I know.
Yeah, exactly. I just love it. Like, when he's getting pissed, Tyrion's making jokes.
All right, so this is probably the biggest part of this conversation in a way, or I guess one of the main points of it is Tywin doesn't want to give up the mountain. So we kind of get into his plan for that.
Yep.
And Tyrion's kind of shocked.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of seems almost Robbish, right? Like, to go back on your word. He's like, oh, no, we'll play it off that it was Amory Lorch. I know I'm very over summarizing this conversation, but Armory Lorch. No, it's Amory Lorch.
Amory.
I know, like I said, I know I'm simplifying the conversation, but like really to just kind of slap him in the face like that seems like you're asking for trouble, especially after you just saw what happened to this other group that did the same thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Nelson, but it was Tyrion's words, right?
It was Tyrion's words, and he promised justice. And kind of Tywin's excuse here in this chapter is he doesn't know what happened. He wasn't here. It's what we say all the time. It's literally impossible to have proof.
To prove much. Yeah.
There's no cameras, there's no DNA, there's no fingerprints, right? Like, it's literally all he said, she said.
Unless somebody witnessed it, yeah.
And that's what Tywin's saying. It's all he said, she said. And at the end of the day, he can't. It's literally like, I guess he's talking politically impossible for Oberyn to not just take what we tell him as truth, as long as we give him somebody. Yeah. And then he goes into, it's like a half truth. Like, Amory was involved. Armory.
Yeah.
He was involved.
Amory.
Armory. I don't know.
I mean, I guess you have to, in Tywin's stance, give them an already dead person. That way, like, there's no chance that the guy, fights back and says, like, wait, I wasn't there. I didn't do this type of thing. Like,
I know I took the other stance earlier with, like, Tywin had 3 mad dogs. Now he only has 1, so he's more valuable in that aspect. But, like, I don't really agree with that. Like, how valuable to Tywin is Gregor? Like, just let him fucking die.
Tyrion, they had this conversation before. He said the wood is full of beasts, right?
Yeah.
The woods is full of beasts. And pretty much what he's saying is, like, there's multiple tools for this job.
So, lay out Tywin's plan, Nelson.
He basically says he has no proof. Gregor's gone. He's going to stay away from the city until Oberyn's gone. Like, we're not going to bring him back.
Yep.
And he's like, what about when Oberyn asks for justice? We're going to give him Amory, who killed Elia and her children. And Tyrion's like, he's dead. He's like, exactly. You got torn apart by a bear. That should be grisly enough to appease Oberyn.
Play on words.
I don't know if that's what's in the books, but that's what's in my notes.
I thought so.
Is it grisly?
It's what it says here. Yeah, okay, grisly. Yeah.
Tyrion's like, we might get away with that. Tywin's like, it kind of was true. Like, he's the one that killed the baby girl. So it was Elia Martell was the wife of Rhaegar. They had 2 children, Aegon and Rhaenys. In reality, Amory killed Rhaenys, the daughter, and
who was hiding under the bed.
In the parents' room, the floor above, and below, a floor below, Gregor
was raping Elia.
And
smashed the baby's head.
The baby's head. Yeah, Aegon's head, the baby boy, who was the infant. He was the younger of the 2.
Yep.
So basically, he's like, that's what happened, but we're just gonna say it was all that
Amory did it all.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, let's start here, right? Like, so Oberon's like, or Tyrion says, Oberyn isn't going to give a shit about you giving him the mountain's head. Like, that's not going to be enough. And then Tywin's like, oh no, this dead guy, that's enough. Right? Like,
well, Tyrion does come back with that. He's like, well, what's he going to say when he asks who gave the order? Right? Is that what you're getting at?
No, that's not what I'm getting at. I mean, kind of, I guess. But at the same time, like,
you're saying it's still not going to be enough for Oberyn at the end of the day.
Yeah, like
it's not the hand that carried out the act; it's the person that put it in motion.
I don't even know if that's enough. I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, it seems
I guess the question is there enough for Oberyn?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, right?
Would killing the mountain, because it was said earlier, if they just gave him the mountain to assassinate or to kill, he says, would that be enough?
The Red Viper is not going to be pleasant, I fear, nor will he content himself with Sir Gregor's head alone. So payment, or more like
for him. Doesn't he go on to say who gave the order? after that.
And he's gonna say, "Oh yeah, he just wanted to win the new king's favor."
Yep.
Like, so you're blaming it on more dead people. That is not going to be enough for this guy that wants justice and revenge. Is what I'm getting at. Like to play this off like, oh yeah, this is so. So you always ask predictions, right? And this is kind of baked into my argument of this is like, this still isn't going to be enough for this guy, right? Like, that's kind of really where I'm coming from. Like, to just be like, oh yeah, this dead man, and I know you heard all those other stories, but it was really that guy that conveniently he's not around anymore. Like, oh yeah, and the other one that you're looking for, yeah, oh he's gone too. Like, this kind of fits along with what we saw with was it Oliver Frey or whatever, or like, oh, he had to go away on business duty. Like, he had job
I think your
stuff.
point is it's unbelievable, and I don't disagree with that. My point is, if
completely
he does
unbelievable,
believe it, I think it might be enough.
But this Oberon dude seems smarter than that already. Like, he seems way more, like, the way he's been built up.
Yes, I agree with everything
like
you're saying
that
there.
He's coming in and he's just ready to say fuck you to everybody. And so, like, why does he think, why does Tywin, this guy that is supposed to be a tactician and a genius, like, at this kind of stuff, think that this story is going to appease him?
Gotcha.
I think it's going to come and bite him here. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like I said,
I think you have a lot of good points there. My point was, if he does believe everything, I think it would be enough. To your point, the story isn't believable. I think that's the biggest problem, right? There's some holes in the story. Like, yes, he's only heard stories from people, but like, he seems pretty fucking confident and he knows what happened.
Why would you hear the same story hundreds of times?
Exactly, yeah. Right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I think the next part's the really interesting part is when, like, after they're like, all right, we're going to set up Amory, is Tywin's basically like, look, I had to present the dead kid to Robert. Like, I didn't have enough. What's that?
I was gonna say this is very like it was a very he's taking a very victim's role in this awful act that like he is not the victim of.
Like, oh, I had no choice but to do this, or it would have been, you know. So the whole thing is Tywin had to at this point be the one to kill the Targaryen line to show that he supported Robert, because he was late to aiding just in the war in general. So the only way to get back in Robert's good grace was to do this thing, which he gave the order. He didn't give too much details to the Malin on how to do it, and he even
I think
says,
that's a big part, is he gave the order, right? Like, and he never really admits it, but when Tyrion says, why did he rape her, he's like, because I didn't say not to, which kind of in my mind admits,
why did he even
told
kill
her to do something?
Why did he even kill her?
I was saying, I don't know about the rape. The rape wasn't here.
He's like, why did he even kill her? Yeah, because she doesn't need to die. Only the heirs, only the Targaryens need to die. She's a Martell. She doesn't. She's just a widow now, right? Yeah.
Right.
If you kill the heirs, you're good.
Did you order the code red?
You're goddamn right, I did. That's Tywin here. But I didn't order the murder of Elia.
I was right. I didn't do it. Yeah. So
you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
I just watched that the other day. But yes, Tywin does admit to it being done too brutally. He didn't even need to kill Elia. And yeah, he's like, look, I didn't give him enough details. And that's the Mountain, right? The Mountain does what I guess is told to him. Like,
he takes liberties too, apparently. What's also fucked up too is, like, we knew Armory was a bad guy, and he's already dead, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But he stabbed this girl 50 times, half 100 is what Tywin says, which again might be an exaggeration, but come on, like, it's like he says.
I guess the point to the Mountain is, if you give him a detailed plan, he will follow. Like, if in the rules was don't kill the mom, he wouldn't have killed the mom, right? He might have still brutally smashed the kid into the wall.
For sure.
But if the rule was don't do this, if yes, then no type of thing, I don't know.
I needed to explicitly say that we needed her to survive in order for her to survive, because I sent him on a kill mission.
Yeah.
Right? That was...
But and his reasoning behind that is he was worried about Jaime's well-being while being with the Mad King, because he wouldn't have put it past Aerys to kill Jaime just in spite of everything.
I just for the record, you guys keep calling him the Mad King. He does not refer to him as a Mad King in this chapter.
Tywin never does. That's interesting. I never thought about that. That's a cool point.
It's a very interesting point for sure, because everybody else, it's almost like Voldemort, right? Everybody calls Voldemort he who must not be named.
Tywin should have the most reason to not like this guy.
That's kind of
right? So like, why is he? It's almost like people calling Jaime the Kingslayer, it's like if someone who really didn't like Jaime was only calling him Jaime anyways, like why wouldn't you use his like kind of derogatory nickname?
Well, that's kind of like Harry Potter says Voldemort to take away his power and to fucking show that he ain't no scare to him. So maybe that's.
Sorry, is that where you're going at, Jeff? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, it's okay. And Tyrion's basically like, after all this, like, all right, fuck it, like whatever, Dad. You're making up excuses for you're playing revisionist history right now. Let's get back to the deal at hand, which is Robb. How did this what actually went down?
Well, that's like he said Amory, if he was smart, instead of killing her, he would have used, or instead of stabbing her to death, he would have just used a soft pillow to kill her. And he's like, "Oh, was it a soft pillow that you used on Robb Stark?"
And he's like, "It's supposed to be an air," which is so. This is interesting. Now we know. This is, I think, again, I've never like looked at
how far he was in on this.
Well, how much he knew, exactly, because I've never I've never read this book with like such a fine-tooth comb, obviously. So like,
well, obviously nobody has.
It's like kind of like I was saying earlier. Why would Tywin know who the phrase had opening the gates, and if they knew about when the feast tents were going to go down? But then like it seems like he knew Robb was supposed to be killed by crossbows at a wedding feast, right? Like at that point, why? To kind of what you guys were saying earlier. What the fuck is Walter doing putting that in a raven? There's no benefit to like telling Tywin about it. Like Tywin doesn't need to know that. Like we're talking about the whole need to know thing earlier. Tywin does not need to know.
I think Tywin told him this.
Okay, that's a good point. Unless Tywin's giving the orders, then unless Tywin's like, here's exactly how you do it.
He probably said, like hide some archers in the or crossbowmen in the orchestra, like,
and make sure you play my song when you do it. Play my theme song.
Well, I think there's one I'm looking for, because I think it's a little bit ahead, but I think there's one point where Tywin almost implies that like Walter asked for permission, like, hey, can I do this? Would you be okay and on my side if I did this? And Tywin almost just like it might be when he's saying like it's not on my hands. Like this was, I just kind of just told him it was okay and like we'd be friends afterwards. Like,
yeah, but I mean, I feel like he's said that a few times here.
I think you're right. Like the fact that they're playing the Lannister song implies that there was Lannister involvement, right? But the funny thing about when Roose says Jaime Lannister sends his regards, and I think Jeff and I talked about in the last Jaime chapter when Jaime leaves Harrenhal and he says goodbye to Roose, he says, "Tell Robb Stark I send my regards."
Yeah.
And well, Jeff and I were saying, do you think there's any chance that like when Jaime said that, he honestly thought Roose would like say that to Robb? Or is it just kind of like a joke?
While killing him, yeah.
You know, like Jaime's always joking. It's just like a
for sure.
joking goodbye, right?
That was the way I for sure still see that as. Yep. He didn't know about this plan. There's no way that Jaime knew.
I don't think he couldn't have known too much, right? The fact that Jaime's getting let go. I mean, we get the Jaime POV. He doesn't seem to know anything except for that something. He's like, there's a point when he's talking with Roose where he's like, okay, I see the game we're playing here, where it's kind of like, as long as I tell you you'll be on my side and I won't hate you and I won't blame you for the hand, you'll let me go. And he's like, hey, yeah, I'll sing the best song I want to my dad, right? So besides that.
Well, yeah, exactly. He doesn't know that he's about to go destroy the Northern Army and Kingdom, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't know exactly what Jaime knows. But from his POV doesn't seem
from what we can tell, it is not that.
Yep.
All right, so let's get back on track. So the other news from this was that Cat wasn't supposed to die.
Yep.
Tyrion jokingly says, we've been talking about this, like, so much for guest right. And Tywin is like, hey, that's on the old man, not on me. Which, that's interesting. Like, does that mean it was Walter's right? To your point, Nels, I think you asked, like, did Tywin say, hey, Walter, like, all right, you got to kill him, but do it in your own way? And Walter's like, I'm going to do it at the wedding thing, or...
Yeah.
I think you guys are almost being too, I don't want to say naive on this, but, like, I feel like this whole chapter is Tywin pretty much saying, like, here's all these strings I pulled, but I wasn't the one that did any dirty work. Like, but you can't point at me. And I mean, or like maybe it wasn't even him. It was like Tyrion saying, here's all these strings you pulled. And he was like, my hands are clean. My hands are clean. And that was like,
so you think he told him, kill him at the wedding. And I don't have to worry about guess right. Cause it's not my house and my shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and nobody will ever know about this or whatever, supposedly. But like, you know, like I didn't give this command, but here's like I said, I think Tywin seems to be scheming, and he seems to be very good at kind of keeping his hands clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to linger because we're going long, but there might. I think there was also a point in the chapter where Tyrion says something about like, "Oh, you're plotting," and he's like, "I don't like that word." It's like, dude, you're the biggest plotter in Westeros. How do you not like the word plotting?
It was like the first line that they said about like he said, "Congratulations on you plotting with Walter," and he was like, "I don't like that."
It's like, dude, you're the biggest plotter in Westeros. How do you not like the word plotting?
Yeah.
Or scheming or something like that. Yeah.
Interesting line that ended up coming up through this whole deal was like basically like interesting that you find it okay to kill thousands on a battlefield, but a couple dozen at their dinner table like throws you in a tiffy.
I think this is a great line by Tywin, but also a bullshit line by Tywin.
Yeah.
If this was true and they only killed like a dozen or so at dinner instead of 10,000 in battle,
they should just 1v1 every battle.
Well, no, I'm saying if that was true and they only killed like 25 and that's how they won, then that's cool. But we saw it from Arya's point of view. They collapsed tents of thousands of people.
But no. Tywin didn't tell him to do that. Tywin never told him to do that. His hands are clean. He just said, maybe make this an unfortunate night for them wolf boys, and this is what happened, So he's good.
What's more important is even if Tywin knows, Tyrion doesn't. So all Tyrion knows is Edmure got married and 2 Starks died.
Fair enough.
That's all he knows from his letter. So Tywin can play this off as way less drastic than it was, even to what you're saying, Kyle. There's a chance that he doesn't know, but I think we all assume he probably knows. And the reason I think we're talking about this one is like, this is something that we're talking to the guy who was involved like firsthand.
Well, this is finally a little bit of clarity on the situation from a few episodes ago, right?
What I was going to say is like even fans to this day, right, like speculate like how much involvement, who was involved, was it just like an okay thumbs up and then he got some word back, like, you know what I mean? Like,
and this is also another situation of that we've talked about this before, where the regular section will get longer and the spoiler section will get shorter as I get let in on spoilers, right? Like, so this is kind of a very big culmination of a lot of that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at here.
The other thing that we haven't really mentioned yet, but I'm sure we have at some point, but books 4 and 5 are kind of unique. You know anything special about 4 and 5?
I don't know if Kyle does know about this.
No, I don't. I probably shouldn't.
Really. Yeah, don't tell him. I don't think you should.
I really don't want to. I don't want you to spoil like exciting things like that. Maybe
don't tell him right now.
Dude, what a stupid face you have going on there. Yeah, don't ruin that.
It's not that important, Kyle, and it's just going to be confusing to you. So I think it's
okay. We'll talk in the spoiler section a little bit about it.
Are they in the past?
The DeLorean shows up.
I know. That would drive me nuts.
All right, so let's back on track. Let's finish this up. So Tywin's like, whatever. It's a cheap compromise for what we need to get done to win this war. This is what's going down.
Yep, list the deals. Do you got the list?
Yeah, Emmon Frey is going to get River Run.
Yep.
A couple of Lannisters have to marry Frey girls, and there is one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lannister girl that needs to marry a Frey guy.
Yep. I want to pause real quick and go back on Emmon Frey. Emmon Frey's kind of fun. It's funny. Emmon Frey gets River Run. Emmon Frey is the Frey who's Cleos' dad.
And mother is a Lannister, right?
Is a Lannister, exactly. Because Cleos is Jaime's cousin. So, like, yes, it's going to...
Cleos is a guy that got killed by arrows or something in the field, or stomped in the field or something.
He got dragged by the horse, didn't he?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. But it's kind of funny because, like, the Lannisters are giving the gift to the Freys by giving it to Emmon.
They're giving it to themselves.
But one generation later, they're giving it to themselves. So it's kind of... I just love the way Tywin plays this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so Lancel and David must marry Frey girls, and Joy is to marry one of Lord Walter's natural sons when he's old enough.
Yep.
Roose Bolton will become Warden of the North, and he will take Arya Stark home with him.
So, this is strange, right? Yeah.
No.
Nelson's making face. But, like, how would he even know? Like, that's the weird thing. I don't know. I guess, when's the timeline, Nelson? How long after do we know? There's no way of knowing.
The assumed is like very shortly after. Like, you just think about Walter, right? Think about what Walter does the morning after this happens, right? Probably the first thing is, I gotta text my boys about this, tell them how good it went. You know what I mean? And it takes a day or two for a Raven. So most people think it's pretty shortly, a couple days after.
I gotta text
Wendy's
my boys.
old. It probably took him a couple days to figure out how to text his boys. But the Arya, we left Arya. She was getting his axe takes her in the back of the head.
Yep.
So like, is she alive? I mean, we knew. Well, the Hound. I don't know, man.
So Tyrion's like, whoa, Arya's thought to be dead. And I don't even think it's to the point of like, oh, she took an axe to the back of the head at the gate.
No, exactly. Yeah, this is like she died in Flea Bottom years ago.
We don't even know where this person is. She's on the milk carton still.
He's like our two best like sneaky spy people, Littlefinger and Varys. Neither of them could find her. So she gone.
She
has
has
from
to
your
be
phone. Delete her from your Facebook. She dead.
I don't know if your two spies, Nelson, is right. It's more so just Varys because he ends up saying Littlefinger may have succeeded where you failed.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yep, that's what Tywin
He says. Sir
says.
Jacelyn. Varys and Sir Jacelyn. Jacqueline.
Yeah, Jacqueline. Jacelyn Bywater. What was it? Iron Hand?
You said, yeah, Jacqueline. Jacelyn Bywater.
George says you can pronounce it however you want. He said it. So
okay.
Yeah, they're all right. Even Caven's right. You guys hate it, but even Caven's right.
And, well, Caven is wrong, but... Alright, so the other part... Interesting line from Tywin, too, is that, like, well, Renly was dead before the Blackwater happened, too, so just think about that. And then Arya is going to marry the bastard Ramsay. So a lot of plans for Arya, who...
Has an axe in her head.
Has an axe in the back of her head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I still don't understand like where this news would have came from, right? Like, so unless she is taken by the Freys and known to be Arya, how would this have gotten back into the Lannisters? The Brave Companion, or not the Brave Companions, the
Brave Companions are the Bloody Mummers. I know.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
I know.
You're talking about Barrack's crew, the Brotherhood.
Yeah, what's the Brotherhood? The Brotherhood wouldn't be telling him. They're the only other ones that know she's alive.
We should call them the Knights of the Hollow Hill. I think that's their coolest name.
Okay, the Knights of the Hollow Hill.
I'll never call them that.
They don't have any reason to tell Tywin. They would not. They're the only ones that know she's alive. Them and the Hound. The Hound seems. I mean, maybe. Oh, is this me piecing it together that he was sent here on a mission? Is that what's happening here? And that his whole point was to be sent with Arya to go collect Arya from these people and take her to Walder Frey because they're all in this together.
That's why he chased after her.
We can leave it at that if you don't want to get too far into it, because that's a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
But
right.
But yeah, maybe the Hound isn't what he means. Maybe he isn't done with the Lannisters. Oh shit. That's probably my biggest revelation yet, I think. I'm excited about this now.
Moving on from that, I was going to say last thing I think that's kind of interesting is in the same chapter we find out that the Lannisters seem to be kind of like scheming with Boltons and Freys. He also is kind of saying like, yeah, we're going to send Arya back with Roose, but come springtime, fuck whoever they got in charge. Your kid with Sansa is taking over, right?
Yep.
Like
so get
it's got to be. It's not blatant about it, but like, there's no way that the Boltons will be happy about this. If like kind of what they're getting out of this is like, hey, you guys, get the North. Like, be
You're
happy.
Like they're like an interim warden of the North.
Like, there's no way they know it's interim, right?
But Nelson, the plan for sure is like we can recover our losses. We can recover, rebuild, re-strategize while they're still up there fucking around with each other. And then
winter's harder
we'll just
on
move
them.
back in. Yeah, exactly. And we'll move back in and just wipe them out. Yeah.
And they're going to be fighting each other. The people that are the Stark Northmen. That's something that he's like, they're going to have to win. They're going to have to win the North still, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, because we did they say that in this chapter? We talked about it maybe in the previous one. Is like, if Roose is just like betrayed all the other North houses, then like when he shows up and is like, hey guys, I'm in charge of all you, they're not just going to be like, okay, you know what I mean? If he's like, I've killed every single one of your lords. Right, like, it seems like he already has the Karstarks on his side, which is a pretty big house, but...
Yeah, so what Tywin says, we shall allow the Dreadfort to fight the Ironborn for a few years and see if he can bring Stark's other bannermen to heel. So, implying that there might be some friction there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so basically, go have sex with your wife and...
Because you need a son to take over
come springtime. Have a son.
And he's like, oh, when do you think she'll be more fertile? Before or after I tell her how we just butchered the rest of her family? Literally all that was left.
So when spring isn't like...
Yeah, it's not like...
Spring isn't like a set time away.
Exactly.
No.
They don't know.
It's
not a couple
very
months.
random.
It's assumed a couple years probably, right? It's probably assumed like
Okay.
3-4 years instead of like 3-4 months. Yeah. That'd be my guess.
So, Kyle, thoughts?
I mean, I think I did a decent job of encompassing my thoughts throughout her.
Yeah, I don't even know
Agreed.
I don't know if we need to like have a Kyle prediction. I think you've been predicting along the way.
Yeah, and we're definitely going long enough. It's going to be a long one to edit. So let's get Kyle out of here and onto the spoiler section.
All right, Kyle, get the fuck out of here.
See you on the next one, Kyle. Davos 5. See the rest of you guys in the spoiler section.
Davos again. It's been a while since we saw Homeboy in the Mountain.
It has.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Bye, Kyle. Thanks for hanging out with us.
See you on the next one for Davos 5. Now, onto the spoiler section for Tyrion 6.
All right, let's not fuck around here.
I do have a decent amount of things. I took notes on this a little bit ago, so I forget what they are, but
Thankfully. All right,
first one I
gotta
just wrote
say.
down.
First one I got to say
Okay.
is that Kyle has still yet to comment about the leeches
That's a good point.
and that Joffrey's next.
I don't know if I have that on mine, but that's a good point.
We had talked about it. We talked about it yesterday off air, and
Yep. And I made a point to in the notes to say in the non-spoiler, Balon, Greyjoy,
and
Robb,
now Robb.
the war's winning itself. I mean, Tyrion says it himself, but like that, if that's not going to call it out to him, nothing else will. Next
Right.
chapter, Davos starts out with leech talk. They're basically like, "Hey, leeches are working. Let's burn the kid." This is where next Davos chapter
Right.
starts.
So,
with, so
I guess, and then it's gonna like ring a bell, and then who knows where his thoughts will go once he thinks that Joffrey might be in the crosshairs.
So, what are your thoughts on the leeches? I think there's two main schools of thought.
I guess one is that it's coincidence, or that the Red Woman actually can do shit.
Yeah, one is what Red Woman can do shit. Two is Red Woman can do shit, but to a lesser extent. The one that I think is most likely is that she saw Robb, Balon, and Joffrey's death in the flames and was like confident in it and told Stannis, "Hey, if we do this thing that I know I can convince you to do,"
just to get his
like,
confidence in her.
just getting leeches, right? Like if he was like, "Hey, if we kill this kid, this will happen," then maybe she doesn't say that because maybe she isn't sure Stannis will kill this kid. She's sure we can get some leeches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, if we get the leeches, each leech will be a king, and that's all a dog and pony show, right? The whole king's blood, blah 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 blah.
I could see that being true. I would say that's probably more true than her having the
actual power.
The actual power. I mean, she did do some crazy shit with Shadow Baby, but I don't know too. Like, we know that her powers probably got increased from the dragons, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point.
Was that like a temporary thing? Like,
we don't see her till post dragon though, so we only ever see her while dragons exist. So it's hard for us to get a comparison.
Right. All right. All I'm trying to say is that at some point, I'm assuming that she's gonna be integral in bringing Jon back.
Okay.
And I'm also gonna say that similar to the show, she steers Stannis down a wrong path at some point. Hopefully doesn't burn his daughter, but I think that was really powerful, like burning Shireen and
that's a good point.
And it not working and being like, oh fuck.
The burning Shireen thing, I think that's one of those things that was like a George telling Dave and Dan type thing. And it's one of the things that I think a lot of the fans nowadays try and forget that like that's pretty much one of the things that's a surefire that's going to happen in the books thing is that Shireen is going to die somehow. But and I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think that Shireen's going to die is one of those things. It's like the Hodor. It's like one of the things that we're 90% confident came directly from George.
I mean, Shireen getting burned was as breathtaking to me probably as the Red Wedding. Maybe not. I don't remember seeing the Red Wedding the first time.
Yeah.
Like that vividly to know. But I know like Shireen, I was like, holy fuck, like this is awful.
One of the things in the book, though, is I'm like fairly confident in like one of the last 2 or 3 chapters we see Stannis. He was like, he told someone like very adamant, like, hey, you go to Essos, try and buy some sellswords. If when you come back, I'm dead, Shireen is heir. Like he's very adamant. Like my line is not over. I have an heir. It's my daughter. He has like made that statement because that's like we've seen in House of the Dragon. Most people assume daughters don't count. So Stannis made very clear, I forget exactly who it was one of his bannermen, I think, like, hey, go to Essos, buy sellswords, Shireen is my heir. The reason I point that out is because it seems like the last time we saw Stannis talk about his daughter in the books, he was like, not just like on her side, but like literally giving commands to, if I'm dead, the next time you hear from me, she is who you report to, right? Which doesn't seem like a man who's about to burn her. So the thought in the books is, where is Shireen? She's at the wall with, in the books, in the show they're all together. In the books, Mel, Selyse, and Shireen are at the wall. Stannis is marching on Winterfell.
Right.
To your point, Jon's dead. Selyse is a kind of a bitch. Maybe she says, hey, Mel, because she's a crazy fanatic of this religion. Mel, fuck it, burn her.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then, because that's how people think it would happen in the show or in the books.
Versus
that Stannis wouldn't know
being
about
okay with it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
interesting. But the whole point was my whole point was, if the Red Woman, like, I'm saying that she might have had the increase in power from the dry. This is where I'm just putting my chips on the table.
I think that's definitely true.
She has some power, obviously. I agree with you saying that she probably had already seen these deaths and was going to profit off of it and get Stannis to buy in more to her. But at some point, she's going to show that it's all fugazi.
It's interesting, though, because you have people, like, I agree with everything you just said, but then it's like on the opposite argument against what I even believe. You have people like Thoros, who's a slapdick. He doesn't actually even give a fuck about their religion, like, if we're being honest. And he is pulling off shit.
Yeah.
That's crazier than Shadow Baby. Like, he's bringing Barrett back from the deck 6 times. That's crazy shit. That's, like, think about that. That's crazy shit.
I think that's a Hound type of thing. Like, you have your knights, and then you have the true knight, who might be the Hound, right? Who's not a knight, but he's a true knight. And then you have this Red Priest who, from what we know, is like, oh, I'm Captain Red Priestess. Watch what I do. And then you have this drunk guy who is like, oh shit, like, wow, I can actually do some. I'm starting to believe now that I can do this stuff. But
it's almost like lead by example versus lead by word or preaching, right? It's like kind of, yeah. So one thing I want to go back to, we talked about the non-spoiler section, the 2 books, Feast of Crows, Dance of Dragons. What I feel like we got to talk to Kyle about this eventually, whether it's not until we're done Storm of Swords, but I think we got to mention it. I think we should mention it to him before we start Feast. Basically, we should say, hey, guess what? Half these characters are completely new, and we're basically getting completely different storylines than what you're used to. I think we should give him that fair warning, because a lot of people really don't want to give him of that.
Yeah, and I
will
agree
give him
with
specifics, but just kind of a general statement like that. Like, hey, almost pretend like the timeline is about the.
Well, you think that, and then you end up maybe going too far. But
which is why I want to talk about it. Like, let us know in comments on YouTube or in the Discord what you think about this. Like, somebody posted in the Discord recently if they thought we should maybe do the combined reading. That we were talking about this a little bit off air. There's a fan thought up combined reading for first time readers, so that nothing's spoiled, where you're reading like chapters in order, right? One that I've never done personally, but I think will be really cool, right? Is, for example, I think in Feast there's a chapter where Sam comes out from reading books at the wall and goes and sees Jon, and on his way to see Jon, Gilly comes out from Jon's room and she's crying and has the baby. And then Sam, the same chapter, leaves the wall. Jon commands him, hey, you're going to be a maester. And in that same chapter, because Feast is all like long, it's almost like 2 chapters. Every character's like 2 chapters in one. They're really long.
Right.
It's kind of probably gonna suck for the podcast because it's going to be super long episodes, or we'll have to figure something out. But when Sam, so he gets told he's leaving, and then he leaves with Gilly and the baby. And then in the Jon chapter, which isn't till Dance, is the exact same scene, but he talks with Gilly and says like, hey, you got to take a baby that's not your baby.
So you're saying we read the Jon chapter first.
We would read the Sam, and then we would read the Jon. So that there's still a little bit of like spoiler.
That's backwards.
No, because it's like you find out that the baby isn't her baby, like, right? So you're not spoiling anything, and it's still in the same order, but it's not like a book apart, right? That's literally like 10 minutes in story. That's 10 minutes apart. When we read it,
I think that's a pretty cool spoiler though to sit on though for over a year, because it's kind of like how Sam would sit on it.
Again, my intention right now, if we were to be done Storm today, would be Feast and Dance. But I think there's an argument to be made if
I'm
fans
sure there's
wanted
some merit,
it.
and I think the merit would be I I disagree with the one you just gave because I think it's a lot cooler to sit on that the baby is not hers for that long. But something like somebody dies in Feast, but you don't know that they're dead in Dance type of thing, or like
another one would be in Feast we learn that Davos died. In Dance we learn that Davos isn't dead.
Or just something that like you've told me this before, like we're gonna know stuff that's maybe happening in Essos before we even read about it from Dany's point of view. Is that true? Or is it the other way around?
What do you mean stuff that's happening in Essos before we read about it from Dany's point of view?
Do you learn something about somebody's point of view before you actually read about it from their point of view?
You're saying with the combined reading?
No, I'm saying with the non-combined reading. Like, obviously, what's first?
Often.
Is it King's Landing? What is Feast of Crows? Is that all King's Landing people?
No.
Is that...
well, yeah, it's Riverlands, Iron Islands, and Dorne. So Cersei, Jaime, Brienne, Aeron, Victarion, Aerion, and Sam. Because Sam is on his way to the south.
So maybe I'm just going to... I don't even know. Like, is Dorne going to be talking about Fagon before we even know that Fagon is over there type of thing? Or...
No, but like, so one example is all through Feast, Aerion mentions her brother Quentyn, who she thinks is trying to steal her throne, right? So when Arion was young, because in Dorne, the eldest child is the ruler. It doesn't matter their sex, and she's elder than Quentyn. So she's supposed to take over after Doran, because she's Doran's eldest child. But one time she went into her dad's room when she was young and saw a letter that said, like, Quentyn is going to be the ruler of Dorne. And the reason that Quentyn's going to be the ruler of Dorne is because Doran plans on marrying Aerion to Viserys.
Right.
So she's going to be queen of everything. And Quentyn's going to be Lord of Dorne because she's queen of everything. She doesn't realize that's the whole plan. She just thinks she's being cheated out of her birthright. Right? So if we were to read the normal way, we go the whole way through Feast without realizing that Aerion's wrong. If we were to read it the other way, I'm sure we'd go 2 or 3 chapters where Aerion feels like butthurt about this before we find out that she's wrong. You know what I mean? And it would make more sense.
Yeah. So every example of a spoiler that you've mentioned, I think is kind of cool that as long as you don't forget about it, they're cool to sit on.
And I agree. I think the biggest pro that people argue for of why to read the combined one is because a lot of people don't like Feast because you get so many characters we've never heard of. Aerion, Victarion.
You're not invested in.
So by mixing in the Dance chapters, you mix in some Jon, you mix in some Dany, we get no Tyrion in Feast, right? You mix in some Tyrion.
This would be the only reason that I would think of doing the combined reading was because it makes timeline A to B make more sense. This was what I was trying to say, is that you have a timeline A to B that we're going to read in Feast, and then when you get the Dance, you kind of go back to A, right?
Yep, exactly.
And do it again. So, like, if you learned something up into B, and then you're kind of going back and, like, you're in an A timeline that you don't know about B, but we know that B happened.
Yep, exactly.
But you're reading A.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can follow that.
No, exactly. And that's why the combined reading exists. That's kind of what I was getting at with Kyle. Because the reason I was going to mention this to Kyle today was because Kyle said, like, oh, like, you guys always said the spoiler section would get shorter and the non-spoiler would get longer as we got to the end, which is exactly true. Like, because there's more stuff that we can talk with Kyle and don't have to hide from him. What I was going to say is, you think there's 2 books left. Really, there's 1 book, right? Timeline-wise, there's only 1 more book left. It's just with we see a lot more characters' point of views, right? So Kyle is actually only like 9 months, like time in world. I think 9 months from now is the end of Dance, right? Whereas I think if we go to the start of the book, it's like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
So in world timeline, we're way more than halfway through. So, like, yes, we can talk about how many books have we been through for spoiler wise, but timeline wise, Kyle's seen most of what's going to happen, right? Because the next 2 books both take place over like the course of 6 months, and it's the same 6 months.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer. My vote right now would be to just read it by book, but
that's where I'm at too. But yeah, let us know if you guys have a different or a good reason not to in the
All right, let's get into this chapter. Get back into this chapter.
Yeah, first one, just short one, not really a spoiler. I kind of love that Kyle seems to like the Dorne stuff. Like, to me, the Oberyn part of this chapter is like 10%. And I feel like we spent 30% of the non-spoiler section talking about it. So I kind of like that Kyle's really invested into that, because that's like the mystery going forward, right? That's like the next big spoiler. I had this one, Jeff spoiling Renly's ghost is worse than Cat's dead. I had that on my list. Like I said, I was going to mention. You kept saying biggest spoiler ever, biggest spoiler ever. And
I proved in the non-spoiler that it's not, because he already forgot about it.
I disagree. The fact that Kyle knows that Renly's ghost was a person is because of you. Maybe Renly's ghost was a real ghost. There's fucking shadow babies. It could have been a fucking ghost. He knows it was a fake person because you said. And the other thing is, I will give this credit to you. You spoiled it, I think, incorrectly. You said it was Loras, because in the show it's Loras. It's actually Garland.
I think I just said it was a Tyrell, maybe.
It was a Tyrell, okay. The other thing is, I think even when you said it, I said, like, it's okay. We'll find out in a few chapters. I thought we found out pretty quick. I didn't know that here we are. But that, like,
I mean, again, that's such a mute. It's such a mute point. Like, it doesn't even.
Well, props to you.
It's such a moot point. It doesn't even matter. Who cares?
Well, it matters here. Props to you. You circled back to it, because I like to do a lot of times. I like to do this. If there's a spoiler that Kyle has a chance to get, I like to give it to him in the podcast, right? Like bring it up. And
I brought it back. I brought us back.
Yeah, we had gone back. We had gone past it. I knew we had gone past it, and I was okay. I was gonna let it. Like, he read it. You could have caught it there, but you went back and you were like, yeah, he even says, like, what about Renly Baratheon's ghost? Yeah, that's what we were thinking about that. And then we like kind of moved on. But Kyle, he was looking in his book. He was thinking about it, but he still he still couldn't put the pieces together.
He didn't put two and two together how it could play to Arya yet.
So I think that is proof. That is what proves to me that your spoiler wasn't effective, right? It didn't matter.
Yeah.
The fact that, like, the point there is that Renly was replaced by a random person, right?
Sure. Yes.
And the fact that he didn't put that together. It doesn't matter who it is. The fact that the point is it's someone. It's just a different person.
All right. Let me defend my case as why yours was bigger. You literally eliminated a whole person.
Yeah.
He didn't know. So, like, for
a chapter and a half, though.
So for a week and a half or 2 weeks, he would have had no idea if Cat was dead or not. Where you gave it to him right away. Where if he knows that the ghost of Renly was actually just a person in his armor, that doesn't affect him.
He might have thought that was
doesn't affect him reading this story at all. It doesn't.
I might have thought he was a shadow baby. I mean, until this chapter, I think it becomes clear in this chapter that what Tywin's implying is that Renly was just another person, right? It's kind of what the implication is.
Okay, next.
There's one point in the chapter, I don't remember exactly when, Tyrion wonders if Tywin could smile. I think it's when he comes in and Joffrey's super happy. Cersei has a smug look on her face.
Everyone's happy and Tywin.
He looks grim as ever or something.
Yeah.
Tyrion wonders if Tywin could smile. When Tywin dies and Jaime's standing vigil, he like looks at his dad and like his body is like...
They make him smile?
They didn't make him smile, but like he stands vigil for like 48 hours or something.
His face is tightened up into a smile.
As the skin tightens, it makes him smile, and Jaime like takes note of it. So like
this is weird.
I think it's fine. It's like, is anything gonna make him smile? And Tyrion, by killing him, kind of accidentally
made him smile.
In the long run, makes him smile. The next one, monsters are dangerous, and right now kings are dying like flies. So there's a line Tyrion says to Joffrey, and this comes back to bite Tyrion in the ass.
Yeah, it's a great thing that we can. It's the it's the line that Tywin was like, your loose tongue is gonna be your end.
That's true.
Because this line, his loose tongue in that moment, is literally one of the biggest pieces of evidence against him for being the one to kill Joffrey.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what I'm getting at. When he's on trial, this is something I don't even remember who it is. It might be Kevin. Or Pycelle. It's got to be one of the two. One of them testifies to hearing Tyrion say this. And it's Correct. Like, that's pretty fucking damning, right? Like, when Joffrey's dead and Tyrion has just said this, it's like...
It's literally a threat, like, I will kill you.
Exactly, so I just thought it was kind of cool. Yeah.
I did have a thought about this, too, about... Oh, this might get a little tin hatty for you.
Hit me with it.
I kind of had a thought that Tywin is in on killing Joffrey.
People have thought about that before. You're not the first one to think about that. I know you don't look at forums and stuff a lot, so I bet you that you've come up with that your own. But like that, to me, I've never really thought of that as a serious thing. But now that you kind of come up with that, without having like I know you don't look up theories and stuff, so the fact that you just kind of say that out of nowhere kind of makes me want to think more about it and be like, huh, if Jeff's thinking about this, you know what I mean?
There was
like,
just like the interaction between the two of them, and Tywin basically being like, "You're like you needed more discipline," and like
the dream line. You mentioned this too. So, sorry to cut you off.
Let me finish my thought. Let me finish my thought, and you get into dream line. Just everything of like him realizing that he's kind of fucked up, right? By his interactions now, like he's starting to realize how fucked up Joffrey is, right? And so he doesn't believe that at some point he's going to not believe that he is the right king, right? To rule in the way Tywin wants to. So he's already like, oh shit, how can we get Tommen to be the king that I want? Let me just finish. I want Tommen to be king. Joffrey's in the way. How can we get rid of Joffrey? He's already shown that he's pretty ruthless in killing one or two to save thousands. So I think he could easily, in his own mind, think of like, all right, fuck Joffrey, let's get Tommen involved. And I think this chapter kind of starts that train of thought.
No, that's exactly pretty much what the fan theory is. And the thing that I was going to cut you off in the middle there and say was like, you said he thinks that Joffrey might not be the right king. I don't think Tywin gives a fuck who's the right king. He wants the king that
he can control.
Basically lets him be in the king. Yeah, and that I think you're right that this chapter he finds out Joffrey ain't that guy. He's gonna cause waves. I don't want waves. Tommen probably won't. That's exactly where most of the theory that Tywin is involved in the murder comes from motive. There's like really very little proof that he was involved with the hairnet, or you know what I mean. It's all from who has the most to gain from Joffrey's death. If we're being honest, it's Tywin, right? Like
Tywin's got to be up there pretty high.
You could say Marjorie because she gets Tommen instead of Joffrey. Olenna,
I mean, even if
Marjorie marries Tommen instead of Joffrey, but Tywin is the one who's ruling shit, right?
I could see to a point of like Tywin and Olenna, like they're both schemers, right? They're very schemish people.
Yep.
Like it'd be really ballsy for Olenna to take that to Tywin and be like, hey, let's kill your grandson. But if Tywin brought Olenna and was like, hey, fuck Joffrey, like let's go with Tommen instead.
Yeah, and I think like everything you've said makes sense. I think when you get into who's involved, one of the problems I have with Joffrey's murder is there's too many people involved. Why do you have Dantos putting poison on Sansa's hair for Olenna to take off? Like, just give the poison to Olenna. Like, are they frisking people on the way in? No, like you know what I mean? Like,
maybe just in case you could pin it on Dantos would be the only thing. Like you could pin it on someone like
a fall guy or something. But then
pin it on like an Amory Lorch where it wouldn't matter, wouldn't affect you.
But my point, I guess, to keep it to this chapter is I agree with everything you said. Like Tywin seems like he would gain the most from Joffrey's death. The reason I'm not a huge fan of that part of the theory is because like we already know that there's X number of people involved. Sansa, Dantos, Littlefinger, Olenna. Throwing Tywin into the mix just seems like there's no way those people work together for this plot. Like Tywin could have just like had him go to bed and not wake up. You know what I mean?
Too many different motives. And Tywin dies, so like we would have known by now if Tywin was involved.
Well, that's another theory. Is like is Oberyn killing Tywin by poisoning him somehow at Joffrey's wedding? And
why he's like sick, right?
Why he's on the toilet? Why he stinks so bad? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next one I said is spoiler I have is at some point he says Joffrey needs a lesson.
Yes.
And Tyrion thinks like I had my own lesson when I was at 13. It stopped talking about Tysha stuff. We mentioned the non-spoiler section, but when he says he needs a lesson, he's about to die. Like timeline wise, he dies in like 10 days from now. Joffrey, exactly. So like other thing, there's a big fan theory that Tyrion will get his tongue cut out, and like. I don't know I think I probably mentioned it once or twice before, but I think this is another big point of evidence where Joff says, I'm going to tear your tongue out, and Tywin says, your loose tongue will be your undoing. There's a lot of people telling Tyrion things along those lines, which is where a lot of this theory comes from.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, all the Lannisters seem to lose the biggest part of them. Cersei's thing that makes her Cersei is being a beauty and a mother, and she loses both. Jaime being a knight, he loses his hand. Tyrion, it's all about his wits and his talking. People think it'd be really interesting if he lost his tongue. What would a Tyrion chapter after that look like? You know what I mean? Like he gets himself out of every situation by talking his way out. How does he do that without his tongue? How does Jaime do it without his sword hand? You know what I mean?
He carries a whiteboard around.
That alone could be why it's taking George this long to write Winds of Winter. He's trying to figure out how to write Tyrion chapters without his tongue.
Tyrion,
you know what I mean?
Tyrion has a whiteboard he carries around.
Exactly. Yeah. The guy from he's got a bell. Breaking Bad guy. Ding. Yeah. A-E-I-O. Ding.
Salamanca. I forget what his first name is.
Yeah.
T.O.
Hector Salamanca.
Hector. Yeah.
Tywin mentions Dorne trying to side with Viserys. And secret messages Tywin never knew. We know about secret messages about Dorne and a marriage pact, right? He's like, there was secret messages I never knew about. Well, those come back up, right? There was a secret message between Dorne and the Targaryens that Viserys was supposed to marry Arianne.
Uh-huh.
But Viserys died, which is why Quentin's whole storyline going to meet Dany is he has a letter from Doran that basically says, hey, here's our pact from before that says Viserys and Arianne, but Viserys is dead, so maybe we can re-roll with me and you, right? That's the whole Quentin storyline. So like this whole Tywin's like, there was this Dorne and Targaryen thing. That's pretty much what everything about Arianne and Quentin's chapters are about in the next two books. So again, it's one of those just like setting the groundwork, and kind of like I said earlier, I'm kind of excited that Kyle seems hyped up about Dorne. That's why like early in the spoiler section I was like,
yeah,
trust me, it'll get more political, because that's one of the things that I think is cool in the books that does not happen at all in the show. Right, in the show, Illyria Sand becomes bad guy, Dorne good guy, murder, bad stuff happens. Right, like it's way more complex in the books. Next one, just Oberyn versus Mountain. Right, there's a lot of Oberyn and Mountain talk in this chapter. We know that happens this book. Right, like Tywin dies this book, so all that.
We still got a lot of shit to pop off yet.
Oberyn's a character that seems awesome, but it is literally only in like 200 pages of the book. You know what I mean? Like we just met him last Tyrion chapter, and he's dead before the end of the book because Tyrion.
In a handful of chapters.
Tyrion's trial, exactly. It's pretty fucking close.
Wedding,
Joffrey,
trial.
I think Joffrey lives like 10 more chapters. Like,
oh wow,
2.5 months. See ya, Joffrey. You know what I mean? Like never again. So like we're getting there. We're getting into the thick of it.
Joffrey or Oberyn? You just said Joffrey died in 10 days, and now he's less than...
Joffrey dies in 10, I think about 10 chapters. It's not exact, but it's close. For like 10 book chapters.
But you also just said he dies in about... you said 10 days earlier.
It's probably close, too, because this chapter takes place, timeline-wise, 12/20.
Oh, you're saying 2.5 months
and Joffrey's wedding is on the new year.
You're saying 2.5 months of us reading.
Yeah.
Of us reading.
That's 10 chapters. Yeah, so...
Timeline doesn't
10
matter
chapters
anyway.
for us. Timeline for them 10 days, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like we'll be there soon. Oh, last thing, Joffrey gets punched by Robert for something with kittens, is what is said in this chapter.
Right.
I think in a future Davos chapter, Stannis tells more of the story, and that some kitchen workers were talking with Joffrey and told him that they were taking care of this cat that had gotten pregnant, and that they said there was kittens inside her. And it said that they told Joffrey this thinking that the young prince, who was I think like 5 at the time, might like want a kitten when they're born.
Yeah.
But Joffrey cut the cat open to see if there were kittens inside her. And when he found them, he brought the baby kittens to Robert, and Robert punched him.
He's Joffrey Dahmer.
Let me look up the quote, because it's Stannis saying it, and it's basically like Robert laid him out.
Joffrey Dahmer.
Well, I mean, yes, like Joffrey's fucked up, but like
Rob's fucked up too.
Like think like Robert, and again, he's probably not in his prime at this point, but the Robert in his prime, like when Ned describes that, 6'6" and muscled like a maiden's fantasy. This dude is just like literally like the Rock, right? Like absolutely huge.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I get it.
And this is from the Davos chapter. Joffrey, I remember once, this kitchen cat, the cooks were wont to feed her scraps and fish heads. One told the boy that she had kittens in her belly, thinking he might want one. Joffrey opened up the poor thing with a dagger to see if it were true. When he found the kittens, he brought them to show his father. Robert hit the boy so hard I thought he'd killed him. Like, that's a fucking hard-ass hit if Stannis literally thought Joffrey was dead.
Yeah,
You know what I
okay.
mean?
What's your point though? Like I don't.
I just mean like, again, I
I never
obviously I'm not
said
a
I never.
Joffrey.
I don't think anybody was ever like Robert was a stand-up guy and a great
I
dad.
know. I'm just saying I'm not a Joffrey fan. You can't call me a Joffrey fan. I hate Joffrey as much as the next guy. But like I kind of alluded to in the spoiler section, you wonder like was Robert like he was always drunk, and like when you hear about the kid who was like abusing cats and then became on to be a serial killer, normally his dad was like an abusive drunk, right? Like again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know. Correct me in the comments if I'm totally off on this, but it's like is Joffrey to blame? Or was it a mixture of Cersei and Robert being absolutely god awful parents?
For sure.
Right.
No, I think Cersei and Robert definitely get enough of the blame.
And again, I'm not trying to make it be like the thing that I take away from this story is that Robert is a bad parent. That's definitely true.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think the main point is Joffrey is a crazy person. Like cutting open a cat when somebody tells you there's babies in its belly. Like just Joffrey knows that if he just waits, he'll be out. You know
Joffrey's a psycho.
He's a crazy person. He's a psycho. And I'm not trying to take away from that.
That's why I jokingly said like Joffrey Dahmer because like.
Well, like I guess my point is I think part of the reason Game of Thrones is awesome is because a lot of books or shows will have characters like Joffrey who are just cruel because we need a cruel character in the books. And in Game of Thrones, yeah, you have Joffrey. We need a cruel character in the books. He's a great villain. But like when you look a little deeper, even though a lot of people like Cersei, when you start reading Cersei chapters, for some reason people like Cersei. I think they're fun to read. I like Robert, right? I'll admit he's a horrible king and a horrible father, but I like the guy. He's kind of funny and like he seems like he'd be a good guy to have a beer with, right? But I totally admit he's a horrible dad and horrible father. But I think that's what makes Game of Thrones great is like when you have villains, they're not villains for no reason. They're villains because they're products of a horrible environment. Right, and they're not horrible. It's not a horrible environment of horrible people. It's a horrible environment that like you understand, like you know what I mean. Like some shit just doesn't work out, and it turns out horrible. And you see,
yeah, I don't know if
you don't know what I'm getting at.
I'll let you ride on that Game of Thrones does this and other things don't. But
give me one that does.
Harry Potter does this.
Who? Like Harry has the Dursleys.
You get Voldemort's backstory
in the books.
Yeah,
Tom Riddle. That's all I know. That's all I know about it because I stopped reading the book.
Like I'm sure there's versions of the Joker's backstory, right? Like you might not get it in every
acid fell in the acid.
That's one, but isn't there? I mean, think about like Christopher Nolan's Joker. Like you don't think that guy was fucked up? He was talking about his scars.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Right. Like which story is true? You don't really know, but like that's kind of part of it too.
I mean, that's what I like. I like great characters. That's the thing is like fans might hate me for it, but I think Theon is one of the top 5 characters in Game of Thrones. Like his story arc, like yes, he's a total douchebag and everything he does you hate, but if you honestly put yourself in his shoes and you were held captive by the Starks your whole life,
right,
and you finally get back to your dad. I know we're totally off. Give me 1 second to cook on this, and you go to your dad.
You're cooking with water right now.
And your dad's like, fuck you. Like, you can see how that would drive you to try. Like, again, I tried to point it out when we went through the Theon chapters, but it seems to me like everything horrible he does is pretty much for acceptance from somebody. And is that a good reason? No. But can you see why someone would do that? Have you in your life ever done something you probably shouldn't have done for acceptance for someone else? Yes. Right. And then when he gets treated, like, everyone says Theon should get tortured for what he does, and on paper, yes, he kills children. Like he's absolutely fucked up. But like again, I'm not justifying it, but the reason behind it kind of gives you a little bit of, you know what I mean. Jeff doesn't know what I mean. He's falling asleep over here. If you know what I mean, leave a comment. We'll see you guys in the next one. That's all I had to talk about.
Wait, no, I have stuff to talk about yet. That's why I want to get you off.
I'm gonna fall asleep on you now.
Well, I actually have stuff relative to this chapter, stuff that you haven't even talked about. You're talking about fucking Theon and kittens.
You're right. Go ahead. The kittens are
just a quick thing. We usually hit on like the gods playing a part in this thing, right? Like,
okay,
whether you actually think they're gods or it's Bloodraven, and it's just Tyrion's thought of like Sansa's always praying to the old gods and they didn't answer her. So like. I've talked about like the old gods actually like talking through the trees and whatnot. Whether again that's Bloodraven being able to control that. Like, is Bloodraven not listening to Sansa, or does he just not care? Like, does Cat and Robb dying not really fit into the plan of what Bloodraven needs as the old god anyway?
Well, I kind of thought a little bit about that too when I read that, but I wasn't. That's not the line I was on. My line was like, "Damn, Sansa fucked up. She should have been praying. She's not going to the old gods to pray. She's not going to the gods to pray. She's going to talk to Dantos.
I'm sure she throws a prayer or two, though. You know.
And again, I don't think this is I don't think this is true, right? But when I read that line, my thought was, damn, would Sansa have been better served saying, Dantos, fuck off. Let me talk to this tree and see what Bloodraven can do for me. You know what I mean?
I mean, we know it's not a weirwood anyway, so
yeah, you're right. It's an oak, right? In King's Landing. Yeah.
That was just my thought. Like, do the gods not care about Robb and Cat, or do they need Cat to be this like mercenary type of thing, or do they not even care at all? That was just a thought I had.
You also had a great line in the non-spoiler where you were like, when I brought up the part about like who spoiled more, about me saying Cat was dead or about you saying Renly's ghost, and you're like, we'll see in a little bit who the bigger spoiler, Cat was dead. And I thought you were like implying that Cat isn't dead, that she like comes back because Cat she's not actually dead. She's like one of the few people who dies, but it actually comes back. And maybe you weren't implying that. You said it like, let's see what's a bigger spoiler at the end of the day. And I was like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was definitely leaning into that a little bit. Cersei blaming Robert, where it's like obviously her fault for raising. She raised Joffrey. You know, like Robert. I should have said this when you were going off on Robert being a bad dad. Like Cersei obviously had Joffrey under her wing tighter than Robert did. Like Robert definitely probably abused the fuck out of him, punched him, was drunk, didn't pay any attention to him, but Cersei might have smothered and like
that's true,
and spoke to him and told him things like this, like, oh, your dad hid on Castle Rock, like fed him information,
gassed him up too much almost,
or just like fed him lines to like change the way he thinks. So Cersei was blaming Robert. I think they both obviously have blame, but like this chapter, it was definitely Cersei like hyping up Joffrey probably his whole time, like, oh, you're going to be a great king. You're going to do this, that.
No, I 100% agree. Like there's the point where Joffrey's talking shit, and she's like, Joffrey, let Tyrion talk shit. I want Tywin to see how horrible he is. And Tywin's like, shut up. Like, Joffrey, your son's the one that's making a fool out of himself right now, not Tyrion.
Yeah.
Not my son, right? And then later she's like, look how he speaks to him about a monster. And Tywin's like, maybe he fucking does need to learn a lesson or two one time. He's a dickhead, like, pretty much, right? So, yeah, there's definitely a point to, like, she babies the fuck out of him, right? And it's interesting, like, it's one of the things where, and I'm like you, like, I'm tainted by the show, right? There's that, whenever I think of Cersei Joffrey, I think of that scene from season 1 where it's right after they get back to King's Landing. He's getting his hand wrapped up. And she basically says, like, if you want to fuck painted whores, you can fuck painted whores. You're the king. You do what we want. The Starks are our enemies. Everyone that's not us is our enemies.
Yeah.
And she's pretty much just giving Joffrey all the worst advice, right?
Yeah.
I feel like we don't see that many Cersei Joffrey one-on-ones. We'd see none in the books, right? Because we never get that POV until Joffrey's dead. So, like, in my mind, when I think Cersei Joffrey, that's kind of the POV I get.
Absolutely.
When I try and remind myself that we don't know. It seems like that's the truth in the books as well, but we don't know.
Like there could have been like obviously Cersei could have taught him to like be a just king, right? Like not like being a king isn't do whatever you want because you're the king. It's like, hey, you're the king, so you have this responsibility of your people. Versus how Joffrey tackles it, which he had to learn from somebody. Whether it was learning from his dad, who just did whatever he wanted, and then his mom saying, reinforcing that. But
I mean, we've talked pretty much for like 20 minutes. All we've said was your famous line: "You plant corn,
you get corn." All right, last one. I think the timing of this chapter and the mentioning of Arya going with Roose is to make you think, because at first I was curious at how we had talked about, like, oh, what's Kyle going to think about the Arya mention here? It's definitely, I think, placed here to make you think that the Hound gives Arya over to Roose.
Yeah. Has somehow knocked her out, like Kyle thinks. Right. So I agree with you, right? Let me spell it out a little bit more, I think, for the readers, right? So the average person, I think, after the last Arya chapter thinks, kind of like what Kyle's thinking, she's probably not dead. It was probably the flat of the axe. She's probably knocked out. But then after this chapter, you're like, oh, fuck. even if she was knocked out, like she's in no better. She might as well be dead if she's now in the hands of the people that flay people, right? And she's going to Ramsay, right? Yeah. That's kind of what you're saying, right? Is even if you thought she was alive, now if she is, she's in the hands of Roose Bolton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about like what her actual fate would be with that, but I think that's what should be Kyle's thought process of Arya got hit in the back of the head and the Hound turned her over versus ever thinking of this like Arya ghost thing, which I know there's a little bit of like, oh well, Arya's not actually back. It's like Renly's ghost. Like it's there in plain words, but it's too far of a connection for a first reader to make.
Yeah, so I don't know how this will make it with the editing into the non-spoiler, but when we were talking about this, I had Kyle take his headset off and mute, and I asked you, and I was like, hey, when Jaime was with Roose said, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he told Jaime something about like Arya's been found and I'm taking her back north, right? And Jaime's like, Brienne's like, wait, Arya, like I'm in charge of Arya, and Roose is like, don't worry about it. She's in northern hands now or something. And I was like, should we tell Kyle this?
You should be able to insert that. You should be able to insert that convo. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say that because there's people who listen to
insert that convo into what we just started talking about. Is what I'm saying.
Arya, we left Arya as she was getting his axe takes her in the back of the head. So like, is she alive? I mean, we knew. Well, the Hound. I don't know, man.
Take your headset off for a second. I'll tell the Jeff. There was when Jaime goes to see Roose, there's the part where Roose tells Jaime that like, oh, we're getting Arya or something like that. Like Roose tells Jaime that like we're getting Arya, and at that point, Arya had just very recently been with Beric, and Kyle's prediction was that Beric and Roose were talking, but he never came back to that prediction. Should I mention to Kyle right now that Roose has already told Jaime that he is going to get Arya? No, it's not a spoiler because it's in the past, but.
I think it shows to what is actually happening.
Okay. I mean, the next line does too, but especially because you're a spoiler. But okay, we can tell him to unmute.
No, well, let's talk about it in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
I don't think you should have told him that because it would have changed his thought process.
No, I agree. After you explained kind of what you just explained, how like what the average reader, and I think you're right. What the average reader right now should be thinking is, after the last Arya chapter, maybe 50-50 Arya's dead, Arya's not. But now, after this chapter, the 50% where maybe she's not dead, she's now in Roose's hands.
Right.
When I don't know if we've said it, the truth is, what we know as rereaders,
Jane Poole is now Arya Stark for the Ramsay family.
Exactly. Jane Poole.
Or for the Roose family.
Jane Poole.
Jane Poole.
Jane Poole. You see why
you just said earlier in this chapter that you can pronounce the names any way you want. Why are you so stuck on Jean?
Listen, do you see why I like the word Jean instead of Jane? When you go with this girl's name, Jane Poole. Jane Poole. Jane Poole.
Shut up.
Like genetics.
I get it. I picked it up the first time you said it.
I'm sure that's a Preston Jacobs thing somewhere back in my. I haven't watched a Preston Jacobs video in a year, but I was brainwashed for a while. But yeah, like, so I think that I didn't have a mention of the fake Arya stuff. I think the fake Arya stuff's great. I think you're right. We shouldn't have re-brought that up to Kyle about the fake Arya thing because, like, exactly what you said. Like, I think right now it's implied that Arya was given somehow. The Hound is just trying to cash out. Right. And he's like, I don't give a fuck if you're going to Rob. I don't give a fuck if you're going to Bolton. As long as I get money.
And he thought that was like the biggest. He just thought that was the biggest revelation ever. Like he was like, oh my god, I'm a theory god by thinking that the Hound just did that.
And we played it off as like, yeah, okay, good. Like we were like, let's not talk about it. And just moved on. Yeah. All right, well, that's all I got. This might be the longest one ever. Jesus. How is this longer than the actual Red Wedding? All right, we'll see you guys in the next one for Davos 5.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.